Comcast sucks.
Shh, they might be listening.
Do you really think they're one of our 14 listeners?
I think they're all 14 of our listeners.
Well, we better get to it. Episode 007 of On the Shelf starts now. Do we have any corrections this time around?
I don't think so. I caught you sleeping, Phineas.
So Nintendo hit us on the 8th of August with what was, in more ways than one, quite a surprising direct. I was surprised to see yet another one with the focus on Smash, but even more so surprised how much better this was handled than the E3 direct.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it was an unnecessary one, but I'm glad to have more information. I mean, you can feed me all the information you can give me. There was a lot of speculation they were going to give us an actual, full direct, and then they kind of hit us with a Smash-only direct. But the info in there was good. I did enjoy it. I watched it after the fact. I didn't watch it live, but I watched the whole thing, and it had some good info.
Yeah, I was working as well. I didn't get a chance to watch it live, but I did watch it about a couple of hours after the fact. So the first thing they did, they hit us with not just one Belmont, but two Belmonts. Both Simon and Richter are in. Mm-hmm. And then I was thinking, not only that, the Castlevania stage looked amazing.
Yeah, and Alucard was a trophy.
Yeah, I love all the different bosses that they're throwing in from Castlevania.
Mm-hmm. The way the level laid out with the different bosses coming. Yeah, it looks really good. I'm a pretty big Castlevania fan. I'm not quite as big as you are, but I'm looking forward to playing as a Belmont. I think it'd be kind of neat.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of people who don't know Richter. There's a lot of people who don't know Richter from the games he was in. So
now, oddly enough, Richter's actually shown up 6 or 7 times throughout the different Castlevanias. He's usually not a main playable character, but he has been a couple of times, which is really nice. And then Simon, of course, the very first.
Everybody knows Simon.
Belmont, yeah. So
yeah, he had an entire game named after him, Simon's Quest.
That's right. And I really, 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 really was happy to see that happen. Just to put I'm kind of shocked that Konami actually let them do it, but I'm happy for it.
Well, I mean, they already had Snake in there,
right?
So, what's throwing an extra little bone in there? Besides that, it's going to give a lot of flavor to the game, and they know that there's plenty of fans out there that want more from them, and they're just not giving it. So, I think this is their way of saying we're still around, stuff's still getting done. We got Bomberman, but that's pretty much all we're getting from them currently. So also an assist trophy. Yeah. So it's I think it's nice. It's nice and refreshing to see. I did like how they included all the special power-ups, the crosses and the fire water and all that stuff, the holy water. So I think that's a nice little touch. And of course you have the whip, which everybody's looking forward to.
Well, and I thought that was great that he's going to have one of the longest reaches with the standard weapon, which is really cool. That'll bring some flavor to that particular set of characters. Plus, with Simon getting new moves, the kind of based on the Richter side, since they're just echo fighters of each other, essentially, I think that is going to work out real well. So speaking of echo fighters, we are also getting Chrom from Fire Emblem and Dark Samus, which is neat. The Dark Samus looked really cool. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'm like I've said in previous podcasts, I'm not a huge Fire Emblem fan, so that one didn't really resonate too much with me. I mean, it's nice that they're throwing that in because more fighters the better. He is just an echo, but still, it's an additional fighter any way you really want to look at it. But Dark Samus looks really good, so I'm looking forward to playing that, and because I used to play around with Samus a lot in the original iterations of Smash leading up to this too, so it's going to be nice to be able to just toy around with something a little different, even though it's more of the same kind of thing. It's a little bit refreshing. It's like a fresh coat of paint.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. The something of note here was that it was specifically said during that portion that there would be more characters to announce later. Now, what I was trying to figure out was, Did that mean what we saw at the end of the direct? And I don't want to talk about that yet, but I just want to know, was that, or are there even more characters to come? And I'm kind of betting that we see more characters before the game's launch. Yeah,
I mean, we've still got, it's 4 more months?
Yeah, we got time. Lots of time.
So we got plenty of time. There's plenty. I'm sure we're going to have some more Smash Only Directs coming down the pipeline. So I see more characters being shown. I mean, it's gotten to the point now, and because they discussed it in this direct, the amount of fighters they have, including the echoes, the amount of music they have, the amount of levels they have. Like, I'm finding it hard to believe they're going to fit this on a standard, cartridge. So I don't know if maybe I know Nintendo does have some proprietary cartridges that only they use, like the larger cartridges. I don't know if maybe they developed an even larger one, which if they did, maybe they're on the cusp of letting other developers use the previously larger one that they were using. I think that would be a really nice thing.
Do you think that at some point in the Switch's lifetime, we will see 128?
It wouldn't surprise me. The thing that scares me about that, though, is whether or not the price point is going to increase with that, because we're already seeing $60 games that require additional downloads.
I could see a $70 or $80 game for that.
Yeah. So my concern is that we're going to see additional costs, because we're paying $60 now for games that require additional downloads. And it's just, I don't know. Like you have some developers that are keeping it low, but they're also using much smaller games. A lot of indie developed games aren't that big, and we have Dead Cells and stuff coming out at a low price point. We have Blade Strangers, which is the most expensive Nicalis game we've seen, and that's still $40. So I like the low price points, but I think if we start increasing game size and getting the larger cartridges, we're going to see a hike, because we already pay Switch tax, which is a huge thing. And I'm just concerned how that's going to affect the market going forward.
Well, I want to go back to talking more about Smash. Can we get back to the stages? Because the thing that stuck in my head about that was how beautiful some of the stages really looked, because they showed a bunch more of the kind of upgrades they're doing on the stages, except for the N64 stages. And I also think that that's fantastic, that keeping that kind of classic, I don't remember how you pronounce this, garage shader, the shader that was used on the N64 that gave it kind of that distinct look for 3D lighting. That just really sets off those particular ones, gives you that heavy nostalgia.
Yeah, the stages were amazing. The Dracula's Castle looked phenomenal when they were showing that off.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah. And then we got to see New Donk City.
New Donk City is going to be great. And then what about the transitions they're adding in, where you can pick 2 stages and
stage morph.
You can do random timer or every minute, or it's adjustable, and then it'll morph one stage into another while you're playing and then back again. I think that's a really nice touch. That adds a little extra feel to the fights, because what works on one stage might not necessarily work on another. And if you're playing against a live opponent, you can each choose a stage, and in that way the advantage is almost countered. I guess it's really going to decide whose stage gets played first, kind of thing. But that's kind of a neat touch. I really like that. I don't know that we'll see that in the tournament level play, but it's going to be kind of neat to see that playing with friends, or if it's offered online. I think that'll be really nice.
And with the 3 different types of stages, and the fact that there's about 100, I mean, we're looking at 300 stages.
Yep.
That's kind of strange to think that. I mean, even if you took the different versions out, it's 103 stages.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And they also announced that,
that's a lot,
that you're going to be able to pick your stage before you pick your fighter. So now, if your opponent picks a stage, you have the opportunity to counter their stage pick with which fighter you plan on using.
Yeah. That's going to present a really nice challenge for people to choose a stage that they think maybe they have an advantage on, and then allow that player to really, use strategy with their character selection rather than just kind of, having to deal with it.
Yeah, it adds a little extra into the competitive side.
It does. It does. The music, you talked about that for a minute. Holy crap. over 800 tracks
Yeah.
on that, and all the different playlists, and the fact that you could use the Switch as like a music player with the screen off if you want to hear that. Not that I would do that, but in the right scenario, I could see myself like sitting there with the headphones plugged in or something, and maybe I'm at work or something. I've got it set aside. And I'm just listening to some of the music from there, but I'm just kind of blown away with the way they're handling the music and the idea of creating the playlists, having 30 plus tracks for Castlevania, 30 plus tracks for Zelda, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I think they did okay. So obviously the Switch is going to be the premier system to do something like that with, to make it like a portable music system. The 3DS obviously is not going to be powerful enough to do that. And one of the things they did to get around that, when Smash for the Wii U and the 3DS came out, they actually released the soundtrack for it. And I actually have the soundtrack, and I can't remember what it was a part of. I think you might have had to send away for it, or maybe it was part of the Nintendo rewards. I can't remember how I got it, but I've got it, and it's a 2-disc set. There's no way with the amount of music that they have in this version that it would be cheap enough to print on you're talking a compilation that you're going to have to buy, an anthology of discs to buy, unless you buy it digitally, but there's no way they'd be able to do that. So I think this is their workaround for that, is that, hey, if you want to listen to the soundtrack, you just got to own the game, plug your headphones into your Switch, and away you go. I'd be interested to see what kind of battery expectancy we have from that.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, so they showed a bunch of rules and modes, and I think my favorite out of that was the Smashdown mode, the idea of eliminating characters as choices as you kind of battle it out. But I would also say that probably classic mode is going to be where I'm going to spend a bunch of time myself.
Yeah, and there was another mode that because they showed the startup screen, and there was another mode that they had concealed, which a lot of speculation is going to be that it's going to be the single player mode. They're going to bring that back, the story mode, which I think is kind of neat.
I hope they do.
Yeah, that's a lot of people are asking for that. This is the Ultimate Edition, obviously, so it would make sense.
It would only make sense
that they're bringing that back with everything else they're bringing back. This game is getting massive. So
yeah, it's out of hand. I mean, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
No. No.
They showed tons of different Pokemon as helpers throughout this, which is crazy. Shovel Knight.
Yeah.
Shovel Knight will be in it.
I'm kind of interested. Like, I completely understand why they have to have their own directs at this point. We'd like to hear more about other stuff too, but I understand why they're doing so many directs just for Smash.
Well, and this is only going to be one moment in history, right? We're only going to have this happening right now with this particular, release. They'll move on to something else after. Also Rathalos. Rathalos is both a boss and an assist trophy, which is the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's also kind of neat. But we're getting to the end of the direct information here. So now, do you want to talk about the new character?
Yes, I do. What I want to know is, how do you say it?
King.
How do you say his name?
King K. Rool.
See, I think it's King Cruel.
I understand King Cruel. That's the joke on how it's spelled out. But I call him King.
It's King K. Rool.
Yeah, a lot of people call him K. Rool. So it's. But yeah, that's the joke, and that was an interesting little addition at the end. He's not really my pick for a new character. Like some people are excited for him, and I'm excited that they're adding new characters in general. But King K. Cruel was not on my radar of characters I would like to see in a Smash.
I don't think so, no. But I did dig in the animation how they had King DDD come in and chuckle away when he was the shadow at first.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, if they but I think something that would be kind of neat, not necessarily along the same lines, I guess, but something that'd be kind of neat is if they somehow worked in Wart as an echo for him. I think that'd be kind of neat.
That could be done. I could see them finding a way to do that.
Yeah, I'd like to. I mean, Wart's another one that's not really on my radar, but if they're going to give me King K. Cruel, or King K. Rool, then you might as well give me something else I don't expect, like Wart.
Yeah. So this topic of Smash plays a bit into one of the other things we need to talk about. The game is going to be out after the switch to Nintendo Online, which means if you're going to want to play this with your friends online, you're going to need to pay for that online subscription. Yeah.
And the subscription's not too bad. They're on pre-order now at most retailers, so you can get those. The 12-month is $19.99, and they've already announced a handful of classic titles that you're going to get for free with the multiplayer upgrade. We've discussed that previously, so it's definitely this is going to be if any game can drive people to get multiplayer, it's going to be Smash.
Smash is one. I would agree. So this is coming late September. I don't think we have an actual date yet, but I'm anticipating a direct that at least in part focuses on this.
Explains everything that's happening.
Yeah, maybe even in total. I'm not sure. I don't know how far they're going to take that. If they're just going to soft roll it. Nintendo's not really known for the soft rollouts, but you never know. I've even seen online at some retailers the subscription cards available where you can just buy the gift card for the subscription right there. The pricing we've talked about, like you said, $3.99 for a month, which I think is fine if somebody's like, do I really want this? Will I use it? Okay, pay $4 and figure it out. $8 for 3 months, which saves you about $4 total. When you go with that $19.99 for 12 months, it saves you $27.89. That's assuming you were to buy the $3.99 every month. So that's a good savings. $20 is a good price. But the family plan, I was looking into this. The family plan is for up to 8 total people, which would be a mere 36.5 cents per month, or about $4.38 per year per person. The interesting thing is I don't see anything restricting the family plan to actual family members or people living in the same location or anything like that. If you look at the Nintendo account user agreement, the word family doesn't even show up at all. You can Control F and look for the word family. It's not in there. Is there a reason for people not to group up and just be, quote, family members for the membership?
I think that's probably the draw for it. Microsoft did something similar with the Xbox back in the day on the Xbox 360, where you could have up to 4 people, I think, on a single family plan, and it came out cheaper that way. So this is just the same thing with more people and less money, which is nice because when the 360 did it, I did the same thing. I golded myself, obviously. I golded my wife. I golded a friend of ours and his girlfriend at the time. And so there was 4 of us, and obviously they didn't live together and they didn't live with us. So we were all online. Then we did that for Call of Duty Black Ops, I think, because we were all playing we just wanted to play just the 4 of us online, and so that's what we were doing that for. But so this is kind of along the lines of that. So I don't think there's any kind of restriction. They don't expect people to have a restriction like that, especially when they're offering 8. Like, I know that there's multi-Switch households. I don't know how many households have 8.
Right. Well, the way that they've got things set up too with the Switch is you can switch users on the same system too. So I would assume that that's not a per system type thing. It's a per account, per person type thing. So, you could theoretically get up there in size with big families, and I could see where they're trying to accommodate those people. I don't know. I kind of want to get a group of us together from the Discord and see if people would be willing to do that. I do know, though, that you have to send like a little invite from your Nintendo account to others via their email address, and they have to accept. And then from there, you can create the family account.
Yeah, and then you'd have to PayPal the money.
Right. But at the same time, to save that kind of cash, because what you're essentially doing at paying $4 and change per year, that's an additional $15 and change that you're saving for that. For an entire year's membership to pay $4 and change, that's a pretty good deal. That's a pretty sweet deal right there.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be interesting to see how this all pans out. I mean, $20 a month $20 a year is not out of the question for me regardless. No. So I'm sure some people will probably group up to try to test out the family plan within the Discord. Just seems like a given. One thing to note about the Nintendo Online stuff, though, is that they have come out and said that the free-to-play games like Fortnite will not require an online subscription to play. So there is that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you wouldn't want to have a paywall, like a different paywall in front of your free-to-play stuff. Mm-hmm.
So that means that the games like Paladins and potentially Warframe, more than likely, will not have paywalls. So you get an MMO.
Yeah, I would imagine. So. I would imagine, though, that there might even be some other games that you might think would have to go behind the wall to not be behind it. I would imagine every Nintendo game would be, but there may be choices from the developers that can be made on whether or not they go behind the paywall or not.
Maybe it's also kind of interesting to note that the online service gives you access to voice chat if you use the mobile app, but games like Fortnite already have mobile chat built into them, and it works. So
I still can't quite wrap my head around why that is. Like, what is Nintendo's angle there? Why aren't they just doing the same?
I don't know. It might have something to do with the cross-platform play, so that you have to be able to talk to your teammates that way, and using the Nintendo app just wasn't an option to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, but seeing that it works and that they can get it to do it, I'm sure Nintendo could find a way to make it work.
Oh, but yeah, no, plenty of games would have benefited. I mean, Payday 2 gets a lot of crap for the port of the game, but if they had in-game voice, that game probably would have rated a whole lot higher. It's hard to play that game without talking to somebody. You have to be in Discord, basically, to do well at that game, because that is a co-op game at its core. So
sure. No, it just I don't know. This is where Nintendo's old, not very good skills at online stuff comes in, right? They've had a history of being poor at handling the modern online world, and this just continues that. And I don't know why. They're in the middle of a technological mecca in Asia with lots and lots of very talented programmers. I'm just kind of beside myself. Still don't know why they can't get on board with the modern world there. I understand certain things they've done to wall off their garden from, the evils of online world, right? There's certain things they've done to keep it family friendly, but this is they're offering the function. They're just not offering the function on the device. So I can't figure that out. I don't know. I do want to talk a little bit more about the NES games, the injection of the online play for the NES games, because so far they've only revealed like half of the NES games they're going to go live with it at the start of the service, right? And most of that stuff is either a classic game that is really not a two players game, because what are the odds that you're going to play a two-player game of Super Mario Brothers or even Super Mario Brothers 3 with somebody on this? Probably really small.
Yeah, I mean, locally, which is the way they originally were played, multiplayer is going to be the closest thing in my opinion, because like I said when we first talked about this the first time, you have games like Mario 3 where the player one plays until they die. And then you have to sit there and wait for them to finish, unless there's some sort of race mode. That would be interesting, where you're racing each other to finish the level. That could be something they do.
Well, that's something I've been wondering. When they say they're going to introduce online play for these, maybe it's going to be something more than just what we thought traditionally. Maybe it's going to be something like that, where both people are going to play the same at the same time, and they've injected some sort of markers, or I don't know. That feels like a possibility. There's also the idea that there's 10 more games for the NES that we don't know about yet that they're going to launch with. I'm hoping more of those are co-op. Things like Ikari Warriors, Commando, Contra, stuff we didn't see. Because I would certainly load up a game of Contra with somebody online.
Oh,
I think
definitely.
That would be a blast.
Definitely. That'd be super fun.
Yeah. I mean, Legend of Zelda, though, is in this list?
Okay.
And sure, you want that online, but what are
you
you going to do?
That. So in the speedrun community, which I know you're not huge into, you know the ins and outs, but you're not huge into the speedrun community, there is currently a trend going on called Rando. And Rando is where they take the ROM of the original game and they throw it through the randomizer. A randomizer. And then everybody plays the same ROM, but the game is mixed up. And the big one is A Link to the Past and the original Zelda. Those are the two biggest ones that I've seen. There are others. There's Mario, stuff like that. Mario 3, where the levels are different in different order. But Zelda and Link to the Past are the two biggest ones that I've seen, mainly because you have to have certain items to get through certain areas. So there's a lot of backtracking and going into this dungeon to find out what's there, burning certain plants to try to find items that may or may not be there, clues hidden in the rupee rooms where you go in and they say something to you and then you collect rupees, how much the rupee's worth. These are all little clues, and that is a huge thing right now. I've been watching the crap out of that, and that would be something interesting if they threw in an online randomizer for like Zelda. I think that would be phenomenal.
I would agree that would be something cool. I seriously doubt that they're going to do that. I don't know.
No, yeah, it's a long shot, but I'm making a suggestion of how they could put in a multiplayer for the original Zelda. This is something that is going on now, and Nintendo is not necessarily against doing stuff that they've seen other people doing that worked. So they could do that.
So Reggie, if you're listening, and I know you are, just hear my good friend out here, Reggie. He's giving you some good advice. He's telling you throw that randomizer in there. So I want you to hear that.
Yeah, I think that would be really great, because it's so big right now. I think it'd be the perfect addition, because I don't know how else they're going to do it unless they are just talking about leaderboards, like what I said before.
One of the things that we're going to be able to do here in just a second is talk to someone that has a very different position in the world of Switch. It's almost more similar to what you and I do than any of the people we've had a chance to talk to this point, because he's not a developer and he's not a publisher. So let's dive right into that.
So for most of our audience, your publication is pretty well known. But for anyone else that's listening, why don't you tell us about yourself and what you do?
So my name's Paul Murphy. I'm the founder of Switch Player magazine, which is also a website. I am closer to 40 than I'd like to admit, but I've always had a particular affinity with Nintendo and Nintendo systems. And my previous venture, which I'm sure we will discuss later on, kind of evolved into what Switch Player became, which is a monthly paid print and free digital magazine that covers everything to do with the Switch.
We'll jump back a little bit. What was the first game console that you ever played? Game or console?
The first game console that I ever played in my memory, because when I was about 4 or 5, I did play on some sort of like older Atari stuff, but I didn't know what they were. The first system that I properly owned was the original Game Boy, shortly followed by the Super NES.
What was your favorite game out of that?
On the Game Boy, I mean, in that kind of era, we didn't have a tremendous amount of money in my family, so obviously these were. I didn't have a huge number of games. Pretty much on the Game Boy, it was Tetris. Of course, I had Super Mario Land and Radar Mission and a few other games, but it was pretty much Tetris was all we played on the Game Boy until I got Link's Awakening, sort of like around about 1993, which until Breath of the Wild was probably my favourite game on any system. For the SNES, it was always going to be Super Mario World for me. I mean, both of those games were pretty much in my top 2. For, even right up till the Switch came out.
They're pretty amazing games, that's for sure.
They are. I mean, interestingly though, I never really got into Link to the Past.
Really?
I've always favoured Link's Awakening over Link to the Past. I mean, Link to the Past is an amazing game, but I preferred the bite-sized kind of nature that Link's Awakening is. I mean, some people might say that it was a little bit more watered down, but for me, that was perfect for playing on the go.
I love both. I think both of those are just amazing games. So tell me this. FIFA football and July of 2012. What does that mean to you?
It was the first time it was the first game I got with my PlayStation Vita.
So what is that? What kind of impact did that have?
I've always favoured handheld gaming. Always. When I was younger, I could never command the time on the telly that I'd want. I mean, my parents were very strict, so I was limited to gaming sort of like at weekends for an hour or so at a time. And as I got older and I was able to play more on some other systems, I was able to play at my leisure kind of thing. Even though I got an Xbox 360 and other systems along the way, I could, in my adult life, I could never dedicate that much time to playing on the TV. I was married, I had children, and the Vita opened up handheld gaming to me in a way that hadn't been done for a long time. And so I was instantly enamored with the little system, and instantly realised there wasn't many people covering it, despite it just being a few months old.
So you started a bit of a blog.
I did, yeah. I did. I just, set up my own little thing. I mean, it wasn't my first attempt at a website. The predecessor to the Vita Lounge was actually the 360 Lounge, where I attempted to do a similar kind of thing with the 360, but it didn't really work. But I did learn a lot of lessons on how to access PR companies and things like that. And then I thought, I'm going to take that knowledge and then just start up my own little blog and review games that I've been buying. And it quickly kind of spiraled into something that one person can't manage on their own.
Was it your intention then at some point, or just a natural, it sounds like a natural progression to begin adding more people into that process?
I mean, my background is in business management. That's what I did for many, many years. I've always been good at organizing people. And one of the good things that you learn as an effective manager is to surround yourself with people that are better than you are at things. Because then that makes your life and your aim and your objective that much easier to do. So once I realized that, this thing was kind of becoming a little bit popular, I was attracting a bit of an audience. I needed people better than me to write about what I was writing about. And then it kind of like all went on from there.
Okay. So you sort of answered my next question. So it's just to say that the Vita saw its share of stumbles in the West, to be sure, but the fan base for the system is ravenous.
Absolutely, yeah. I've even with the success of the Switch, the audience is nowhere near as passionate or as dedicated as that Vita audience is. I don't think I've seen an audience as passionate about their little system as the Vita audience, and I think that kind of enthusiasm and desire and determination is kind of what's kept it going even today.
So, was there any story or interview that you wanted to do for the Vita that just never worked out?
It was difficult because when you're a small channel or website or something like that, even if you're big, starting to gain a bit of traction and what have you, it's very difficult to access the bigger kind of studios. Sony were always fantastic with providing review code and copy and things like that, but we were never able to secure any kind of major interviews with them or anything like that because they just weren't interested in the Vita, let alone a little website talking about it. But yeah, I mean, it's always you wish you could speak to people and get an idea of what was going on. But even if for nothing else, because it became quite apparent after about 12 to 18 months that Sony had no interest in supporting the Vita. It would have been interesting to have got in touch with somebody to find out why, because there was a lot of voices within Sony that unofficially were champions for the system. Your Adam Boyes, your Shahid Ahmed, and even sort of like Holly Bennett and Sarah Willock. They were always pushing the system themselves unofficially, but the corporate message was one of disinterest, really.
At what point during your kind of process with the Vita Lounge did the idea of a magazine manifest? I mean, in today's day and age when news is really at your fingertips all day long with the internet, that's a different take. And it's interesting to us to see something like that come about, a physical print.
I grew up with magazines. I mean, I'm almost 40. The internet wasn't a thing when I was a child, so magazines resonate with me. You know, getting something in print every single month, filling you in on the biggest and the best news and the latest reviews, and just giving you ideas and things like that. It makes sense to me. And I'm a big believer of, if you know, everybody's making content, like you say, online, you know, information's at your fingertips. Everybody's regurgitating everybody's news. And I firmly believe that if you want to stand out with your content you're producing online, you either need to be better than somebody else, or you need to do something different to somebody else. And that's kind of where the evolution of the magazine came from, to try and attract a new audience and maybe, you know, see if we could reach new fans in a different way. And then ultimately that became kind of more of our focus for our coverage. I
mean, I remember growing up having subscriptions to things like Nintendo Power and to EGM, that type of thing, Game Pro. These were that was what you looked forward to every month because of the lack of something like the internet. You know, you didn't know how to progress on a game at a certain point, or you would find out something super secret about a game from either the magazine or from somebody else who found out from a magazine. And it was always cool to see the articles and the pictures. I mean, it was a format that really brought the information that you had no other way to get, which was really cool. So absolutely,
and I think it's kind of you know, there was a lot more choice back in our youth. I mean, there are still magazines today, of course, but you know, they're few and far between now, and none of them are kind of like carrying the kind of rapport that Nintendo Power or over in our side, the official Nintendo magazine, for example, carried. But it's kind of like I liken it to a sport, where if you like sport, you like a team, and you kind of like, you have that affinity with that team, and you follow it religiously and so on and so forth. With magazines, when I was younger, you valued the opinion of these writers. You know, every month I looked forward to seeing what they were going to say about this game or that game, or what they thought of CES as it was back then, before E3 became a thing. And you know, I valued and really looked forward to seeing what my favourite writers were going to be talking about. And
yeah.
You know, I think that, you know, the internet is just a sea of voices now, where you still have your favourites. I mean, a lot of people value sort of, you know, what the kind of funny guys say, and, you know, Colin Moriarty and Jim Sterling, to name just a couple. But, you know, these are people whose opinion do carry a lot of sway. It's like, but everyone else is just, it's a lot of noise, you know, and it's kind of like, you know, I miss that kind of era, I suppose.
I think I miss it in a lot of ways too. You did have one heck of a run on the Vita. You guys were able to publish over 500 reviews online. I think you had like 26 magazines. At what point did you decide to parlay those efforts over to the Switch?
Initially, I mean, so it was until the Switch was revealed officially in 2016 in October, I wasn't even sure that I was going to do a Switch website. And it was that reveal just blew me away. And I knew in an instant that this was going to be kind of like, choose my words carefully so I don't upset the Vita fans, but I knew that this was, to a rational, level-headed Vita owner, this is a spiritual successor to the Vita in many regards. It's everything they would have wanted in a Vita sequel. Mm-hmm. And I knew there and then that this was going to be where the audience was going to go. But I did intend on continuing with Vita Lounge in tandem and the magazine. I mean, in fact, we still released a couple of magazines after we launched Switch Playin magazine, but it became clear that, because essentially the same team was running both in the beginning, we couldn't really focus on both. And we were starting to struggle to get review codes and stuff as kind of like support was dwindling for the Vita somewhat. And on top of that, I had more support for Switch Player. I mean, I'm grateful for every single person that either read the digital version or or got the Vita mag in print. But I only had 100 people in the end, whereas now I've got 500 people already supporting the Switch Player magazine. So it's kind of like, it was clear that if I had to choose one over the other, it was the most sensible approach was to go for the Switch.
What was your initial reaction after the Switch Direct reveal back in January of 2017?
One of surprise and one of immediate need to go and pre-order it. As I said to you off air before we started, I've always been a big Nintendo fan, but kind of I lost my way with Nintendo around about 2007, 2008, as a lot of Nintendo customers and fans did at the time. I think, you know, with the Wii era and kind of like a lack of the games that I kind of wanted on the Wii and on the DS at the time. So I kind of like went in the direction of an Xbox. But I've always had this long hope that Nintendo would kind of rekindle what attracted them to me as a child and as a young adult. And immediately with that Switch reveal, it kind of spoke to me on so many levels. It's like, you know, yes, this is the system for you. And you know, it's kind of like it sounds silly to say, but it's kind of, I knew it was going to be successful, but I didn't know how successful. I couldn't have predicted how phenomenal it has been up to now.
Yeah, their support of indie titles and stuff like that has been quite drawing for a lot of people. It's rekindled a lot of childhood memories playing games on the Switch, like Tiny Barbarians and Axiom Verge. It's very old school Nintendo-esque type games.
Absolutely. I mean,
you sort of answered part of this next question. So you pre-ordered the Switch.
I did.
So what launch titles did you get? I'm assuming Zelda, so we can skip Zelda if that's true. But what other titles did you get?
The interesting thing is, I told Nintendo what I was doing. So obviously, I pre-ordered my Switch, and I pre-ordered Zelda, and I pre-ordered 1-2 Switch, and a whole host of other stuff. And I told Nintendo what I was doing with the magazine, and I then cancelled my pre-order because they told me they were going to send me one. So as part of their support to me, they sent me a Switch and quite a few launch titles, including Just Dance, which I didn't. It's still sealed. In my pile of shame. Despite many requests to for somebody that keeps asking me to video myself playing it. That's not happening anytime, Brad. But yeah, I told my wife that Nintendo was sending me one, and she said, "Oh, okay, then you can buy me a dog." So my Switch money went on a dog for my wife.
Well, my wife told me I could buy a Switch if I bought Just Dance, so yeah. that worked out.
Yeah, well, while we're recording this, my wife is playing on my Switch at the moment. She's playing Overcooked 2. She absolutely loves Overcooked and Overcooked 2, so that's keeping her busy whilst we're doing this.
So creating a magazine has got to be exhausting. When do you sleep?
Well, like I said at the top, surrounding yourself with people that are better than you is key to all of this. I have an amazing designer and I have an amazing team, and you know, we're 19 issues in now. Issue 19 launches next week. Everything's kind of routine, and you know, we have deadlines and we have a structure. So it kind of like it goes like clockwork as long as everybody's kind of doing what they need to do.
Can you walk us through what an average publication cycle looks like?
We release issues every 4 weeks. To the dot now. So it's not just monthly. It's, I don't know what the release schedule is like in America. I imagine it is the same, but it's, in the UK, you have 13 numbered issues throughout because there's 52 weeks, obviously. So every 4 weeks a new issue launches, and the last one of the year is usually Christmas or something like that before it all starts again. So we've kind of, with this year, we kind of nailed this 4 week cycle now. We have a cut off where any reviews that we've published on the website after X date, they don't go into this issue, they go into the next one. And I'm constantly talking to many freelancers about what features they want, and they all work to a deadline as well.
How does that look from just, you know, the actual process of taking something and putting it into print and all the editing and artwork and all? What is that kind of process for you guys?
It's incredibly challenging. I mean, as I say, all of us, this isn't a full-time job for any of us. This is something we all do as a hobby and just for fun. And I think one of the reasons I have a big team now is so that we can all still have fun doing, ultimately, what the whole point that we do this is to play games and to find out about new games. And when you're doing something like this, sometimes it can be quite draining. So obviously I have a big team of editors that will take it in turns to edit specific sections of the magazine and proofread things and stuff, so that constantly over the course of a week, sort of like we're working on this section's done, okay, that's put to bed, this section's done, then put to bed and stuff. I mean, it's nothing I was ever trained to do. It's kind of something that we just kind of, you learn from each issue, with each month kind of getting better and better and more refined as you learn. You know, you just get better learns with you know, this worked this month and this didn't work, and so on and so forth. The same as anything really. The time constraint is incredibly, I can't convey into words how how much pressure you're under, because you've got to get it off the print, otherwise the subscribers aren't going to get it on the day that you said you're going to get it to them, and so on. It is a challenge, but I do enjoy it.
What are some of the other challenges aside from timing that you face with publishing a physical magazine?
One of the biggest challenges is we have a huge international audience. So of the nearly 500 people that support us on Patreon, well over half of them, I'd probably say 2/3 are international, with probably half of them in the US or Canada, and the rest being in the UK and the rest of the world. So obviously, when I'm posting issues out, there's still another 5 to 7 days typically before it's going to get into the hands of the international supporters. So sort of like we are trying to work on that. But in order for me to do that, I'm going to need to get an earlier deadline so that they can, it's a balance between how early do I have my deadline and cut off for news that's already going to be outdated by some people that think that, magazines can't compete with the internet anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, trying to find the balance between getting it out on a set day and the international people getting it at a more prompt time, It's trying to find that balance, because sometimes people don't understand that. I mean, we've got quite a lengthy thing explaining this on our Patreon, and the amount of people that sometimes don't read information on something that's a product that you read is amusing.
I'll say that one of the things that stands out about Switch Player, at least to me, is the amazing cover art. Can you tell us a bit about what goes into the process of choosing a cover?
Yeah, I mean, with Vita Mag and Vita Lounge magazine, as it was, we use just stock standard artwork, as a lot of magazines do. And other than issue 1 of Switch Player, every issue has been custom designed because I wanted it to be striking. I wanted it to stand out. It's nowhere near being on store shelves or anything like that, but I wanted it to have that kind of look where somebody would see it on a shelf and go, wow, I want to buy this magazine. And I hope that over the entire run so far, people do kind of feel that with the art. As regards to choosing the cover, typically it's kind of like the biggest game that comes out that month. Initially, it was kind of like the highest reviewing score from an issue, but then I thought it kind of might be better if it was just kind of like the biggest game, because the biggest game may not necessarily get the best review score. So, for instance, issue 4 was Ultra Street Fighter 2, and it wasn't the highest scoring game in that issue, but probably the most suitable for a cover, if that made sense.
Mm-hmm.
So once I kind of designed, set the idea of which cover I'd like it to be, initially it was just on a month-by-month basis. I then get in touch with a variety of designers that I'm in touch with to kind of like freelance the design for us. I was going to say, for now though, I've got a list on our forum in our staff room of potential covers. So we're now working sort of like 3 or 4 or 5 months ahead in the planning stages. So, for example, the current issue, which comes out next week, is Octopath Traveler. Issue 20 is going to be Monster Hunter. So we're already in the process of designing that cover. But then issue 21, am I going to get a review code for Dark Souls? Am I not? I'm talking to Bandai at the moment, because if they can get it to us, then that will be the cover. If they can't get it to us, then it'll probably be Mario Party 11 or something. It's kind of like these conversations that we're having with, how early can you get us review copy in the kind of planning process.
At this point in time, you're the only magazine that's dedicated 100% to the Switch. So how does that feel?
It feels pretty incredible. And on top of the supporters that we have for the digital PDF and the print version, there are also thousands of people that read it for free on issue. It was very important to me that I was able to offer it for free as well. So obviously a little behind where the paid supporters are. But to try and garner as much of an audience as I can, but also to get the information out there, because the main reason I do this is to make sure that the information is out there. And although we're not the only unofficial magazine for Nintendo, Nintendo Force is obviously well known to a lot of people, and for good reason, because they're amazing. But we were kind of like, we're different to Nintendo Force because we solely focus on the Switch. And I'm sure that at some point they will kind of tile down their alternative coverage for other things. But for now, it's amazing knowing that we pretty much are in the position we're in.
And how large is your team right now? And are you still growing, or do you think you've reached a nice balance point?
It's difficult to find the balance, because obviously everyone's volunteers and writing for fun, and because they enjoy it, everyone gets a token amount of money each month for their effort and stuff. But we're just enthusiasts doing something that we enjoy doing and hope that other people enjoy reading. You don't want too big a team. But I've found myself continually needing to increase my numbers because Nintendo have seen fit to release nearly 100 games every month on the eShop. And considering we get review copy for around about 70 or 80% of all of those, it's quite difficult to stay on top of everything that's happening.
Now, you kind of talk about what your team members are doing here because they're getting these review copies and they've got to get in and play and do that. And I keep thinking about some of the timeliness of this question with recent things. So ensuring that reviews are unique can be quite difficult because, there's a lot of things out there that people want to say and there's a lot of people saying them. So it's going to be hard. Ultimately, there's only so much that anything can be said about any given topic. And in the wake of recent scandal with the plagiarism at IGN, how do you protect yourself from that same possibility?
I think the first thing that you have to, when you're working with a team and you work in, for all intents and purposes, I run Switch Player like a business. So it's like it's a job, but it's not, it's a hobby. But I find that it works because it's a job. And in a job, you have people you trust around you. And I think that's key. You have to trust that the people that are working with you in your team are all working with the same objective in mind. I think that the way that IGN dealt with everything that they had to deal with was fantastic and appropriate. And the way that they're continuing to do it is the only way they could do it. I've seen a lot of comment on, the editor-in-chief should have done this and the reviews editor should have done that. I know from myself on the website, I'm doing a full-time job. I'm a foster parent in real life as well. I'm a dad. I'm a husband, and I do this as a hobby. There's only so much that I can realistically do. In the instance that I found that something would be to a similar kind of degree as the IGN stuff, I would probably deal with it exactly the same way. You can only apologise to the parties involved and immediately remove anything that's kind of associated with that. But you have to kind of trust that your team wouldn't do that to you. I saw, as many of us did, the video in response to the allegations and such forth and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, one of the comments that the individual made was doing research for reviews. I've never looked at anybody else's reviews before writing a review. Why would you allow somebody else's opinion to sway or influence or even guide your own review? Your opinion on a review is based on your experience with the game. If you need research, then read the press releases, read the supporting information that comes with the review, and just keep playing it, or reach out to the developers themselves if they'll respond to you. You shouldn't let somebody else's opinion determine how yours goes. It's I've never looked at anybody else's review before writing something, and to me, it's amazing that somebody would do that.
Yeah, I think that that entire scandal hit pretty close to home, I'd imagine, for you and your staff.
And everybody in the industry, whether they're an enthusiast, whether they're a professional, it
hit us. It hit us.
But it hits trust. It hits trust, and at the end of the day, when you've got somebody that's paid in a privileged position that isn't even passing off their own opinion allegedly on a subject, it's going to call the whole thing into question and damage relations. This is a scandal that's going to be remembered for a long time.
Mm-hmm. So earlier this year, your magazine underwent some upgrades to the look and layout. Would you say that there's more changes that people should be looking forward to?
I would say so. I mean, we're constantly looking. I mean, you can't just completely overhaul your design every few months. I think you've got to kind of have a degree of consistency. And I think that in 2017, we had our set design. And then we were able to get in touch with Will Overton, who is a legendary game designer here in the UK. Game magazine designer. He's worked at Rare. He's back at Rare now, and we had the opportunity for him to help kind of shape our look, because one of the biggest criticisms with Switch Player was that it looked amateur. So obviously I wanted to address that going into 2018. We're already, as I said a few minutes ago, with regard to covers, we're already working months and months ahead on things. So if anybody has any ideas or feedback, we're always open to listen to any kind of criticism, constructive specifically, because we've got no shortage of people that tell us that they love us. But finding people that will tell us, do you know what, I don't like this, I don't like that. They're the people I want to hear from, because although you can't make something for everybody, you can't please everybody, you can do a best approach to try and aim somewhere in the middle so that you kind of appealing to as many people as possible. And that's kind of like, they're the people I want to hear from, because they might say, yeah, this is okay, but you need to work on this. And that's what, I'm looking at going into 2019, because you can never rest on your laurels because you become complacent. And, I think that you constantly need to be pushing yourself, because if you're pushing yourself, then it keeps on making you challenge yourself. And when you challenge yourself, you end up producing better content.
Are there any games that came out on the Vita that you think are just so amazing as handheld titles that you would like to see them make their way to the Switch?
I think a lot of the indie stuff that appeared later in life is probably already in process of coming over if it isn't already out. Obviously, in the early days, there were a lot of tremendous games that Sony themselves were involved with before that kind of all petered out. I think they're unlikely to come to the Switch, but something like Tearaway. I love Tearaway. I think Tearaway is probably Sony's most Nintendo-like game, and I think that it's a travesty that it didn't kind of attract the audience that kind of game deserved. But it's the kind of game you could see Nintendo making, in my opinion. I'd love for something like that to be on the Switch. But I think that everything that I loved about the Vita initially, the Switch is doing its own kind of thing with a lot of that kind of approach.
So what you said earlier that your wife was playing Overcooked 2 on your Switch. So what game are you currently playing on your Switch, and why is it not Galgun 2?
Galgun 2 is kind of like not the kind of game that I could play around my young children or my foster children, I feel. At the moment, I'm reviewing Banner Saga 3. I loved the first one. Second one was okay, but I thought it was kind of like very middling, as I wrote in my review. I'm playing 3 at the moment, and I think 3 is just amazing. It's a brilliant way to end the game. But to be honest with you, I'm struggling to not play Fortnite. I'm spending probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours a day playing Fortnite. All of my spare Switch time is at the moment going on that silly little game. It's
our Discord, we had to create an entire category of channels just for the Fortnite.
Yeah, my 14-year-old looked after the child. He is a massive Fortnite fan, and he got a Switch for his birthday. He just turned 14 just a few weeks ago, and he's like, "Oh, that Switch is amazing! I need a Switch. I need a Switch." We currently have 3 in the house. My 11-year-old birth son has a Switch as well. My soon-to-be 14-year-old daughter wants her own Switch. My 8-year-old daughter wants her own Switch. It's all gone Switch mad in this house. But yeah, I'm just playing a tremendous amount of Fortnite and stuff. I mean, I'm not sure if you're going to talk about it in a minute, but I have every physical game for the Switch that's released in the UK. I always fancied the idea of having at least one system where I owned every game for it. And because I'm a grown up now, and because I'm in a better position in my life, I can afford to buy every Switch game.
One of us.
Yeah, that's precisely
initially. Initially it was every game, but I very quickly realised that I couldn't commit to every collector's edition, every Japanese version with an English language release, every American game. I mean, Mr. Poland is constantly tweeting about 249 or 250 releases. I think he said today. I'm on about 150. And it's like, I already know how much I've spent to get 150.
Yeah.
and the very thought of I'm missing 100 if I wanted to be a true collector, is, my wallet is telling me no, but I'm sure we'll have a conversation at that point. I mean, in the last year as well, I managed to get every single amiibo as well. So,
wow.
It's, that cost me around £2,500 all in all. Which, my wife doesn't know that. So, if you're listening, darling, I'm lying.
Yeah. Well, you're saying you don't want to try to afford these special editions, like a sword that comes with the game for a random reason.
You're just tempting me now. I mean, it's around about when they released about 8 or 9. So you're talking about 9 months ago before it kind of like the release schedule really kicked up a gear. I think I think there was Breath of the Wild, and Breath of the Wild has many different collector's editions depending on where you live in the world. So how far do you want to go with that? Sonic Mania originally got released with a silly Sonic statue on a Mega Drive, but a download code. And it's like when I was kind of like Argos in the UK were doing the collector's edition of Fire Emblem Warriors for about 40 quid, so it was about half price. So I nearly jumped. And I started looking at what the other ones that I'd missed out on were going for. And Sonic Mania was £270 on Amazon. And I was looking at the standard was it Master Edition of Breath of the Wild, and someone on eBay wanted 250 for that. And I very quickly realised I was going to be spending thousands and thousands if I was going to achieve a true complete set. It's like I saw John tweet the other day that there were about 3 different versions of Lego Marvel. One with one figure, one was a Master Edition or something. It's like, where do you draw the line? You know, it's and I haven't got the shelf space.
Yeah, not to mention. Not to mention that if NIS is putting out a game, it's going to have a special edition also.
Absolutely, and limited run as well. I mean, you know, initially when we did an interview with Limited Run, I mean, I think what they do is amazing. But when we originally spoke to Doug, and he was saying they're probably only going to be doing 1 release a month, and obviously now it's kind of turned out to be 2 a month plus the collector's editions. Sometimes there could be more releases. You know, it's kind of where do you draw the line? You know, it's difficult. And as I say, to date, they've still only shipped the 1. And how many have they put on sale so far? 6, 7, 8?
To be fair, though, my Mercenary Kings and Flint Hook are both on the way. So they've shipped 3. But
absolutely. And they've been talking about Saturday Morning RPG as well. I mean, I know they've been talking a lot about that as well. And I don't doubt them. These guys have earned people's trust and respect for what they've done for the Vita and PlayStation 4 scene over the last couple of years. You know, it's these things are coming. These things are coming. It's just where do you draw the line? You know,
yeah, that's a tough question to answer, because I think that really depends on each individual's wants and needs for collecting. I have a different line than Cyrix does, and Cyrix has a different line than JP does, and you know, so on and so forth down the community. And the one thing that we try to share with everyone about the community is no matter where you draw that line for yourself, whether you just collect games published by Nintendo, whether you collect every single international release, whether you just collect English-only titles like myself, or you know, whatever it is, we welcome you. Even if you have 5 games, 2 games, you know, everybody starts somewhere, and you saw these and you had a love for it. So I think for us, what we try to do is just include everyone, and we say, hey, you know, if your collection is 20 or 200, you're a welcome addition to our community, and here's more information in case you decide to get interested in more of this, or at the very least to help you make decisions that are discriminatory. You know, you can choose, you can actually have the information to be armed with what to purchase, because we know that a lot of people can't buy everything or won't buy everything. So you're doing the same thing that we're doing. We're arming people with information. We're hoping that people take that information, right, and use that to make the most informed decisions they can.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's good that you're inclusive like that. You know, you are a collector, whether it's 200 games or whether it's 5 from a specific series. You know, it's because not everybody can afford to buy every game. I mean, I can't, but it's difficult because you look at some of the stuff that Limited Run are doing, and you're thinking, you know, that they're all amazing games, or that they're worthy of a physical release. I mean, especially West of Loathing. West of Loathing is an amazing game, well deserving of a physical release, especially that collector's edition. But then I look at my collection, and I've got some absolute tosh that is just there just because I'm collecting it. You know,
Monster Jam.
Like, yeah, Monster Jam. You know, Cartoon Network Battle Crashers.
Oh yeah, Troll and I.
Troll and I. Don't even get me started on Troll and I. And then there's horse riding games, which I'm sure are aimed at a specific audience. I mean, Hello Kitty Racers and All Star Fruit Racing, and you know, there's some rubbish that I've bought just for the sake of buying. You know, and it's kind of like you'll know, you'll get it. I mean, there's there'll be Barbie games, and it's like, how can I hold my head up high when a Barbie game comes out? You know, it's
that's going right in the center of my shelf. What are you talking about?
We've got one guy in our Discord that is extremely excited about All-Star Fruit Racing.
No joke. He really is.
Well, to each their own. At the end of the day, I mean, at the end of the day, games are subjective, aren't they? You know, one man's Breath of the Wild is another man's Troll and I. You know, it's like we don't all like the same things, and that's why these games do ultimately find an audience.
So we're winding down the interview now, and usually what we do at the end of the interview is we have one question that's kind of not related to the topics that we're talking about. It's just a random off the wall question, and we just get a random fun answer. So
now I'm gonna cut in on this and say that this one is controversial to me.
Yeah, this is a controversial topic. So recently, we, the hosts of On the Shelf, had some words on Twitter about food topping. So we don't want to go down the rabbit hole about whether or not it should be a punishable offense to like or dislike pineapple on pizza, but we need a clarification on this. Which goes best on anything? Is it pepperoncinis or banana peppers? And if you don't like either or haven't tried them, you can feel free to lie to our faces just so one of us can gloat over the other.
I've never tasted either of them. I'm probably one of those guests that you'd hate. I've got an incredibly poor diet. I'm very fussy. I can thank my parents for that when I was a child, turning my nose up at everything. So I wouldn't have eaten either of those.
All right, then do you have an opinion on pineapple on pizza then?
Pineapple on pizza, I don't think I know anybody that likes pineapple on pizza. I think it's one of those weird things where what's it kind of doing there? But to the initial question, I think pepperoncinis sounds like a cooler thing.
Okay, so you went 1-1 on that because Soul is a pineapple person, and I don't think it belongs on pizza. And he's a pepperoncinis guy, and I prefer banana peppers. So
this goes unresolved. We're gonna have to take this to the next guest.
Yeah, and all things balanced here.
As perfectly balanced as all things should be.
Oh, very good, very good. You're right in line with where I would hope you would be. So,
I'm hoping once this is wrapped up. I mean, you guys have had Infinity War on digital release for a couple of weeks now. It's only just come out over here on digital release, so I'm hoping to get to that in a minute because I've only seen it twice in the cinema. I'm desperate to see it again.
I've watched it 4 times now, and it gets better every time.
There's the little details that you didn't see the first time around, and when I saw it the second time, you're seeing the stones individually glow when he's using them and stuff. You know,
oh yeah.
Like little things like that you didn't realize. And I'm on the Marvel Studios Reddit regularly to see all sorts of stuff, and it's like even now they're seeing stuff that they didn't see before, and it's like, what an amazing film. You know,
truly amazing. I know that we're our audience, a lot of them are Marvel fans, not everybody, but a lot of them are. So it's kind of interesting because this is I say the potential. It has the potential to be one of the greatest movies of all time, but it really depends on how they're going to follow this up and what comes in the next Avengers.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's been out a few months now, so I don't want to spoil it for those that still haven't seen it. But
yes, please don't.
They did everything that you would hope they would do, and it's like, how do they follow that up then?
I know,
because the next film is either going to be the best film ever, or it's going to be a massive disappointment. There's no in between. It's either they're going to completely blow this one away with what they follow it up with, or it's just going to be a letdown.
I have a lot of hope. Of hope.
I mean, these guys are the best things that Marvel have ever to happen to the series. I think that ever since the Russos came on board, the caliber of the other films have upped their game as well. I mean, Thor Ragnarok is a personal favourite, but I think that the whole of the end of Phase 2 and Phase 3 kind of moving on has really upped what these guys are doing with these films.
Well, it really started with Winter Soldier when they came on to Winter Soldier. And
absolutely.
You could see what they pulled off there.
But they've been able to take risks, though. They've been able to take risks with the material and with the audience because the audience are now invested, Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of what works with Infinity War is that you get more out of it if you've seen the previous 18 odd movies before.
True.
But you can watch it on its own. you can get the gist of what's happening from its own as a standalone film, and I thought that worked quite well as well. It's you get more out of it if you're more invested, but that's the mark of a good film, and anything like that. If you understand the subject material more, then the film's going to mean more to you. The same as a game. If you understand the subject matter more, then it's going to mean more to you when you watch it. But you can still watch it as a standalone film and enjoy it. Yeah.
Wow, look at you bringing it back to gaming.
I did. See, that's why I enjoyed the Deadpool game. I don't know a lot of people who did, but I enjoyed the Deadpool game just because I know all of the backstory and history about what's going on, and then in the game I saw the little nuances that brought back memories of the stuff I've read in the comics.
I mean, I loved Spider-Man 2. I played it on the GameCube for a similar reason. It took a bit of creative liberty with the film, but a lot of the film stuff was in there. But it's kind of like it felt like Spider-Man for the first time. You actually felt like you were playing out that kind of role. They executed it so perfectly, and it's kind of it's one of the things I'm looking forward to for the new Spider-Man game that's almost out. I'm hoping that it'll make me feel the same as I did when I played that. Yeah,
these the things that they can accomplish with being able to tell a story a certain way now, because classic gaming had some limitation. There's only so much you can do on older consoles to a certain point, right? So now that modern consoles are capable of just about anything, it can present you nearly anything that they desire to present you on the screen. It can really take you to a place that you couldn't go previously, and the ability to present that story and integrate a lore into a game so thoroughly is simply astounding now.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we're getting to a point now where you're only going to be able to take the graphics so far. It's like the Xbox One X and the PlayStation 4 Pro. These graphics are getting pretty good now. And it's kind of like, but there's only so much that the human eye can actually see. So it's like, what resolution is enough resolution for us to be able to still take gaming as far as it can be? For me, as photorealistic as these games are starting to become now, I still hope that they stick to the same kind of formula that's worked for gaming for many, many years. Because some games now are just becoming kind of like interactive experiences, and it kind of like you lose the magic of what gaming is. And to your point about sort of like graphical prowess and stuff like that for former systems, it's interesting that growing up I remember it differently. So it's sort of like I got a SNES Mini. And I'm playing the games now, and all my children are like, look at those graphics. Those graphics are awful. But I don't remember them being awful when I was a child.
Well, they weren't.
And it's like, and it's like, the PlayStation, the original PlayStation, and it's like you're playing Wipeout for the first time. It was incredible. But you look at it now, it's jaggy. It's like, but I don't remember it. It's kind of like, I suppose it's the same as kind of like looking at standard definition black and white films versus color films and stuff like that. It's kind of, because it's all you had when you were younger. Remember it different, perhaps, but trying to explain to my children that each of these things was state of the art when they were released.
You can't have what you have now without having what you had then.
Oh,
that's true.
It's all an evolution, isn't it? And it's
it really is.
It comes back to what I said about the magazine and pushing yourself constantly and not being content with what you have. But there comes a point where you can only go so far.
Well, gosh, I feel like we could just go on talking about these types of things forever. There's so many enjoyable topics surrounding all of this. But
absolutely. I mean, I'm happy to come on again, but I think I definitely want to converse with you guys off air.
we are happy to have you on again at some point here. We want to see where you take the magazine from here. We know that a lot of people were super excited to just see the advent of your magazine, and we want to know what the future is going to hold for you. Is there anything you can think of that you want to share with the audience before we disconnect along those lines? Is there anything else that you have in mind?
I mean, I just want to make it the best that it can be. I'm never content with how something is, and I will continue to make this for as long as there's an audience that wants to buy into it and support it. But I know there's room for improvement. I mean, I've had a lot of people saying we want more news, because the internet has all the news that you want. but people can't click on multiple websites and multiple links all day, every day. And, somebody might click on a link one day and then forget it a few months later, like, Doom Eternal. Somebody a couple of months down the line might forget that Doom Eternal came out. But if it's in the magazine in print, you might go back to it and just, whether you're sitting there looking for an idea for a game or you wanted some reading material when you're in the loo or something, it's like, and then you say, oh yeah, that game's coming out, and I think that's a lot of what people miss on the internet, because it's so there at your fingertips. You don't really remember to go back and look at it again. Once you've read it, and then that's parked. And I think that books and magazines and things like that, they are eternal. Whereas the internet, although it's going to live on indefinitely, you seldom go back to the same thing that you've looked at before, in my experience. And I think that having that information there that's always going to be a reference for people to go back to is important.
We agree. Well, thank you again for all of the time that you've spent with us today.
Absolutely not a problem.
We greatly appreciate it. We definitely want to have you on again sometime in the future. And again, this has been Paul Murphy. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
One of the things that I've thought about as we've gone on for this is episode 7. So we've been doing this for more than half a year now, right?
God, it's been that long.
It's a lot to think about, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's it both goes by fast and does not at the same time.
It's hard to believe I've been able to put up with you for this long.
Oh, please. You love me. So I wanted to ask you some questions. I wanted to see. I want the fans to learn a little bit more about Cyrix
and take away some of my mysteriousness.
Yes, we're gonna pull back the curtain. Not too much of the curtain, but we're gonna pull back the curtain a little bit.
Ignore the man behind the curtain.
Now take this seriously.
Mm-hmm.
What are your first memories of gaming?
Let's see. My brother got an NES for Christmas one year, and we had an Atari. I don't remember a whole lot about the Atari, but
now you say 1 year. What year? Like, are we talking?
We're talking like 88,
early
88,
on?
89.
Okay.
Yeah. Like early adoption. So he got that the bundle that came with Mario and Duck Hunt whenever that came out. That's the one that we had with the gray zapper. Funny story is I still have that NES. That's the NES that's actually sitting right here next to me, plugged into my Elgato. So that was the first system that we got. My brother didn't really like to share. So majority of my playtime on the Nintendo came when he would be at school, because I hadn't started school. My brother's 8 years older than me. So he would be at school, and my dad was working third shift, so he'd be home with me during the day. And that's the only time I remember my dad actually playing video games. Was we used to play Mario Brothers together, because he would help me beat the areas that I had trouble with. So that's kind of a fond memory that I had, because my dad is pretty adamant that video games are just bad. Like, he doesn't like them at all. He'd rather get out and work with his hands and, build stuff. So he never really played games beyond that. I'm pretty sure that Super Mario Brothers was the only game I ever actually saw him play. To this day, anyway. I might be able to get him into something else eventually down the road. Who knows? Of course, my uncle had several systems my dad would tool around with occasionally, and my dad did try NASCAR for a while on the PC, but nothing ever really stuck. So that's kind of a fond memory. I got to play with him. My first system that I personally owned, because shortly after getting the NES, my parents donated my Atari, well, our Atari, it wasn't really mine, to a charity shop or to a family. I can't remember exactly. I just know that my mom said that they gave it to a family who didn't have stuff. So the first one I personally owned was the Game Boy, the original grayscale Game Boy packaged with Tetris. I got one of those the year they came out for Christmas, and that was my first game, or my first thing.
So when you think back about the Nintendo and the Game Boy, what game would you say was your favorite?
Back then, I had an extreme fondness on the NES. I loved the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. which is strange because a lot of people hated how hard that game was. I never got very far in it, never beat it. I remember the underwater level with the electrocuting Ivy sucked really bad. And I remember when I beat it for the first time, the dam. Yeah. I remember beating it for the first time and feeling a sense of accomplishment. I really loved that. On the Game Boy back then, my favorite game was probably Super Mario Land, which is kind of weird because it's not your conventional Mario. It has a lot of enemies that never showed up. Yeah. It had a lot of enemies that never showed up anywhere else. And the end of the levels always had the split doors, one up, one down. So you either got a bonus or not. And I actually beat that game and really enjoyed that a lot too. So I would have to say that my favorite Game Boy game back then was Super Mario Land. And my favorite Nintendo game was probably the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, going past that, I ended up enjoying like Pokemon and Link's Awakening a lot on the Game Boy. And then on the NES, my favorite game ended up being Super Dodgeball and like Ninja Crusaders. Both games I've speedran. So until recently, I was decently high on the leaderboards for Super Dodgeball, but I have since I actually had 2 world records at one point for Super Dodgeball, both of which have been utterly destroyed now by the same guy, and then a couple guys after him. So yeah, those ended up being my favorite games, and I still play them from time to time. My NES is still hooked up. I still have a Game Boy in my desk drawer here. I think Metroid 2 is currently in there. The original Return to Samus is currently in my Game Boy, and I have an EverDrive in my NES.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. So has it always generally been Nintendo for you, or did you really branch out and get into the other systems, other companies, that type of thing?
So I had the Nintendo and the original NES, and all my friends got Super Nintendos, Sega Genesis, Nintendo 64. So I never had any of that. But when I got to be 12, 13 or so, I ended up buying a used PlayStation with 1 controller and 1 memory card and Tekken 2 from a friend of my brother's. And I paid $50 for all of it. And I played that, and I loved it. Tekken 2 was amazing. I love Tekken 2. That was a big draw for buying the thing. I remember renting the system from a local video store and playing and renting Tekken 2 with it. I didn't have a memory card, so I could never turn it off. I had to leave it on when I went to bed and stuff, because if you turned it off, you'd lose your save and all those characters that you unlocked. I also rented a Nintendo 64 and with the Japanese version of Mario 64. So I had to have my friend, give me his strategy guide so that I knew what was going on in each level, because I couldn't read the text at all. So I was big into Sony for a while. And then the game that really absolutely hooked me was my dad had went on a business trip, and I told him I wanted Diablo for the PC because all my friends at school were playing Diablo on the PC. I wanted Diablo for the PC, but I didn't tell him PC. I said I wanted Diablo. And he knew that I had just gotten a PlayStation. And at the time, Diablo wasn't out on the PlayStation. Of course, it came out later, but he didn't know that I was talking about PC. So he was on a business trip, and my parents would always bring stuff back when they came back from business trips. And he brought back a game. And he went into the store and he was asked for Diablo. And like, well, we don't have that on PlayStation. It's not on PlayStation. Because at the time, it hadn't come out. And he was like, well, what do you have that he would like? And the guy was like, we've got this game just came out, and I'm actually going to buy a PlayStation for myself just to play this game. This game. I have to own this game. Everybody's buying it. Everybody's loving this game. So my dad bought that, and he brought it home. And I can tell you that the year was 1997. So that should obviously tell you that the game he brought home was Final Fantasy VII. Yeah. And that was it. I played that game nonstop for 2 months, and after that, I was just hooked. I was playing games left and right. That's going to go down in history as the game that got me as deep into gaming as I am. It's the game that kept me hooked. I've bought it on PC, the hard copy when it first came out. I've bought another copy of it when it came out on Steam. I 100%ed all the achievements on Steam. It's a game that I have played from start to finish 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and I will keep playing it. I don't care about the people who hate on the game. People who say it's overrated, that's on you. I absolutely love the game. It's there for me. I was like 12 or 13 when it came out, and it got me in. That was it. I was a Sony fanboy for a long time after that. And then I skipped the original Xbox, and once I got an Xbox 360, I was a Microsoft fanboy for a while. I skipped the PS3. And then now I have a Xbox One, which I hardly play, and a PS4, which I have played more, but not hardly play. And then Nintendo won me back over with the Switch.
So let's talk a bit about the Switch here. What made you decide to collect for the Switch?
Collect was, I don't know. I honestly don't know why I decided to start collecting for the Switch. I had actually bought I Am Setsuna physically before I got my Switch. And so that was technically my first game. And once I had a few games on my shelf, I was just, I don't know, I felt compelled to just keep buying physical editions of games. I actually don't, the only digital games I own are ones that are games that have been given to me or provided for me. I've never actually bought a digital game, and I have all kinds of store credit, Nintendo credit from cashing in my cartridges. There's just not a game. I see a game that I want to play, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wait and see if it gets a physical release, because I prefer physical media for everything. It's always been that way for me. I have a few Xbox arcade games, but for the most part, I've always had physical copies of games. My Steam library might disagree, but Steam is really, it's its own monster, because the games get so cheap, and it's easy to buy, 12 or 13 games for $5. So that's a little bit different, but I prefer physical media every chance that I get.
Is there a system between when you first started gaming, which was early enough that you could pretty much say just about every system, but was there a system that came out that you really wanted and just never got your hands on?
Wanted and didn't get my hands on when it was new, or wanted and just never got my hands on?
Answer that however you see fit.
Okay, so a system that I always wanted and I never got while it was new was the Nintendo 64. I ended up I traded some video or some computer parts to a friend of mine for his 64 and games. And then coincidentally enough, he ended up like selling those parts back to me later or something. So that's how I ended up with my 64 and a ton of games for it, and I've bought a few since then. Of course, I bought a Super Nintendo when I was in high school, and at that point, the PlayStation 2 was out. But the Nintendo 64 was the one that I really wanted. I think I didn't get it until college, and I always wanted that. The system that I always wanted and never got, probably a Dreamcast. I've never owned a Dreamcast. Really? Yeah, I've never had a Dreamcast.
Wow, that's amazing, because and I'm not going to take too much away from you here, but the Dreamcast it's in my top 5 systems of all time.
Yeah, I've got friends who
amazing.
I've got friends who had one. I had friends who went out on $9.99 and got one. And, and I loved it. I loved going over to his house. The guy who lived behind me was a really good friend of mine, best friend in grade school, junior high, and we were friends through high school. And he had one, and I remember going over there during summer break and playing Sonic Adventures, and he had the little cartridge that goes in the controller, and we played
the VMU.
Yeah, the VMU. We played Power Stone. And stuff like that. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good system. I just never got around to buying one. I mean, I could go out and buy one now if I wanted to, but the way the market is on the Dreamcast, some games are just really hard to find, and I would hate to buy one and then not play it enough. So I'm just kind of holding off on that. Sega CD, I almost bought. Back, I had a friend who showed it to me, Sewer Shark and Night Trap, believe it or not. And I thought I wanted a Sega CD, and I never got one of those, but I came close one time to buying one. I just decided against it.
Yeah, that Dreamcast, that was something else. Fond memories right there. Really fond memories. So now that you're kind of in on the Switch, right? And you've got a decent collection going on. It's not as big as mine because you're not collecting a lot of the international stuff.
I'm just shy of 130 games, I think.
Yeah, you've thrown in on some, but you're primarily just ESRB. But looking at your library right now, I know this is just a moment in time, and it's still relatively early in the Switch's lifetime. What is your number one favorite Switch game? And I know this will change over time, but just right now.
I hadn't really thought about that. I have played through a bunch already. I don't know. That's really tough. I mean, geez, kind of caught me off guard with that. I would say probably, as weird as it's going to sound, I guess Knights of Azure 2.
Okay.
It's a weird choice to make, I know, but it's the game that I probably put the most hours into and consistently played. And that's not to say it's not going to be overtaken by something like Octopath, because I haven't beaten Octopath yet. I'm like 16 hours into it and I'm enjoying it. It's a great game, but I'm basically focusing on the games that I've beaten, and Knights of Azure 2 is the one that I've beaten. That's probably my favorite. The one that I haven't beaten that I want to go back to and beat, that is probably gonna beat out Knights of Azure in terms of on my top list, is going to be I Am Setsuna, because I'm at the end of I Am Setsuna. I just need to finish it. I just had so many other games pop up, and then of course Octopath is up there. But keep in mind, this is coming from a guy who hasn't played Zelda yet, so Mario Odyssey's up there too, obviously, but I've never been the biggest fan of Mario. I love it and appreciate it, but it's not, Mario is not one of those hit home kind of games, except for obviously Super Mario Land and then the original Super Mario Brothers with my dad.
Is there anything specific that you'd like to see come to the Switch that has not been announced?
I don't know. I mean, like in terms of new games, I'm digging that was it Gravekeeper. I'd like to see that. But games that are out that I don't know. I mean, I said I wanted Dragon Ball, and it's coming now.
Well, it doesn't even have to be something that's already been announced necessarily for something else. Just something you want to see.
Something I'd like to see. I'd like to see them bring back a good Castlevania game. But maybe I'd like to see Ninja Gaiden come back. I mean, Microsoft has kind of had its grips on that for a while. It showed up on PlayStation. I'd kind of like to see Ninja Gaiden come back to Nintendo.
Now, is there anything collector-wise that is going to been a holy grail of yours that you don't yet have?
That I don't yet have. Maybe I'd really like to get my hands on like a complete inbox NBA Jam Tournament Edition for the SNES. I think that'd be really neat. Or like a poster, like the NBA Jam poster that came out that had like the codes on one side and the box art on the other. I kind of like wouldn't mind that.
The one with the metallic basketball cover.
Yeah. So something like that.
On fire, I think.
Yeah, something like that would be kind of neat. But there's not really a whole lot of games that are out there that I'm just like put out on a pedestal, because the only one I really wanted, the grail for me that I really wanted, was Tenchi Muyo Game Hen, which I got this year. So
right,
I don't know. Maybe Earthbound would be kind of neat, though. I'm not a huge fanboy of Earthbound. I just think it could be kind of neat to have.
Is there any other thoughts or advice you would give other people collecting or jumping onto the Switch collections? Because we've seen a couple of posts recently of people just starting to collect for the Switch. They're coming in. They've realized it's been out for a year and a half now, and they're starting to really pay attention, so they're jumping in, what advice would you give them?
Pick a collection type and just kind of stick with it. Like full US, full English cart, full world, whatever, sealed, whatever you want. Just pick one and stick with it. Don't listen to the people who talk about how it's a waste or it's stupid. If you've got the money and you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, you spend your money however you want. I really hate reading posts about people talking about how the Switch is there's nothing rare, so you shouldn't be spending all this money, or you shouldn't go out and buy games on day one because they're just going to be discounted later. I mean, we don't know. There's a lot of market information that kind of points that direction for some titles. So I can kind of concede that point, Big Ben titles being the big one that keeps getting brought up. But, if you've got the money and it's not, hurting you, your household, your family, then spend your money how you want and just enjoy it. Don't listen to the people who are telling you that it's a waste, because you're not collecting a game necessarily because it's going to be worth a lot of money. You're collecting to have a complete set experience, or to pass it on, or share it with people. They're not necessarily just for value. That's where a lot of the fall off occurs, is when people think that collectors collect just for value. No, we don't collect just for value. Some do, but most of us don't. Most of us collect because we have a passion for it. It's just something we want, something we enjoy. It brings us happiness. That's what we work for. We work for our money to bring ourselves happiness, and this makes us happy. So just do you and have fun with it.
Well, thanks for taking a few minutes out of this to go through and answer some questions that I'm sure some people will be interested in listening to. Maybe at some point in the future we could turn the tables on that, and you could ask me some stuff.
Oh, I'm writing the questions now. Like
I'm sure you are.
You blindsided me with this, so now we're going to get you going.
We've all seen what the Switch is in regards to being an indie powerhouse, right? The eShop is plastered with tons of indie titles. Some are simply amazing, while others are not so much. My biggest question about this debate, in your mind, what sets a AAA title apart from an indie title? And realistically, how much does that difference matter anymore?
The only thing that sets a AAA title apart from an indie title in the conventional sense of definition is the publisher. The games are just as good or just as bad. So the whole fight between AAA and indie kind of bogs my mind. Obviously, I like indie developers to be successful, so you can call them the underdog if you want, but I mean, there's plenty of AAA publishers out there that put out absolute garbage. I mean, look at WWE 2K18, which had a team of people working on the port over, and it was absolute and utter trash. And then look at something like Axiom Verge. It was written by one guy over 7 years, and it's a phenomenal game. So yeah. It's just, that's the only difference to me, is the publisher. And in terms of conventional definitions, AAA is just a set of publishers that have established themselves and are putting out titles, and they have teams working on stuff, whereas the indies are relatively unknown or getting progressively well known, putting out good titles as a small team in limited workspace, basically.
So when we talk about the AAA games, I think the thing that sets them apart in my mind, as far as the more known upper echelon of those, is their budgets. Some of these AAA games get just insane, immense budgets, right? There are games that have budgets larger than many Hollywood motion pictures, right? From large studios. And the thinking is obviously, more money means we can do more things, right? I can hire more people to code whatever I need, whether that be the game engine, the assets, the models, the particle effects, etc. So, when you look at some of these titles and you think about AAA versus indie, are there indie titles that can compete with the massive budgets? What kind of impact does the budget have on a game?
The budget has, basically, for me, the budget is going to more or less be affecting the timeline, because when you have a massive budget that you can outsource or you can pay for more people to come in and work on your title, you can get it out quicker. So, and the product may be fine, may be good, but indie developers that don't have the budget, most of them, maybe not all of them, depending on what they have to do to earn a living, most of them are going to still put out their game eventually. So, I mean, you can look at people like, and I hate to use this because I'm not a fan of his at all, but you can talk about people like Phil Fish, who put out Fez. Mm-hmm. Like, Fez was stuck in development hell. Like, money, didn't know where money's coming from here or there, and he was very much a perfectionist when it came to his game. Like, he had to have it just right. So, yeah, we see that those timelines get strung out because it won awards long before it came out. So, I think a lot of the budget stuff is going to affect you. You may have a lot of polish coming from the budget as well, but I think the budgets, mostly when it comes to indie titles, budgets really, really affect the timeline more than anything else. It obviously, some stuff is gonna suffer as a result, but the timeline is really what's going to be affected, because they're going to have to work other jobs or do this or that to earn money, to earn a living, to keep a roof over their head while they're working on the title. Most indie titles are labors of love. So they're going to come out. They're going to get put out eventually when the developer feels like they've got something, and with a bigger budget and they can devote more time to it, it just come out faster.
So I guess the answer to the question's already been, said in a certain way, but I'll ask you point blank. Do you personally care if a game is AAA or indie?
No, not at all. I care if the game's good. That's all I care about. Like I said, there's plenty of AAA titles that have been bad, and there's plenty of indie titles that have been good, and vice versa. So you can have a bad AAA title and a good indie, or a bad indie and a good AAA. It doesn't matter to me at all. I just want good games. Some of my favorite games are indie. So yeah, it's.
I would agree. I think the thing that this all points to, I sort of alluded to this when I introed this segment here, the idea of the Switch being an indie powerhouse. Well, why is that? In my mind, there's two reasons here. Number one, portability. We now have a system that you can realistically take on the go with you. I know you want to say, some people want to say, oh, the Vita this, the Vita that. Well, the Vita is great, and it has a lot of really cool titles on it. I still believe that the Switch is going to be a bit more powerful, have a little bit more versatility, that type of thing. So you grab the Switch, and now you can play games on it that you might not have been able to play on the go, or at least not at the quality level that the Switch allows for, right? So that's one thing. The second is the ease of entry into, even though it's a horribly organized eShop, the Nintendo eShop houses a ton of games this early in its life, right? It's going to be a simple entry point for a developer and a publisher to jump in and put games out there, and they're going to get bought. And when we look at the sales numbers on the Switch, the eShop for the Switch, people spend money on it. They spend a lot of money on the eShop. The Switch has, not just with the eShop, but with physical titles, one of the highest sell rates for a system that you can find on owner versus game, meaning however many systems are out there, they have the highest amount of game purchases per owner, which is like phenomenal. That's what you want. It kind of goes to the whole Apple versus Android thing, right? People were buying on the iTunes store all of that stuff, and a lot less people on Android were buying apps. Now that number's since flipped actually on phones. There's more being bought on Android than there is on iTunes. It tends to be close, but either way, I mean, that attachment rate for these types of titles is a huge thing for Nintendo. That's one of the reasons why they keep saying we want to put more out. We want to get more out there. We want, 20, 30, etc. titles per week. And of course the quality is going to vary, but the AAA is not going to be a major part of 20 to 30 titles per week. That's not going to happen. 1, 2, maybe 3 per week from AAA collectively, if you're lucky. It's almost all indie titles at that point. Yeah. And there are a lot of good choices.
And the Switch has a lot of different, varying degrees of people who enjoy different types of things, but the Switch has million game sellers. So, I mean, there's 20 million Switches roughly having been sold, and they just announced not too long ago that Octopath sold 1 million. That means 1 in 20 people who own a Switch own Octopath Traveler.
And that was only what we know when they released that info. It's probably gone up since then.
Yeah. And then that's just a rough guesstimate based on households having multiple Switches, stuff like that. A rough estimate based on those statistics alone is that 1 in 20 people have Octopath. And that's crazy. So there's plenty of games out there that can make it. This just proves that there is the market for $1 million sellers, and there's people who buy Switches just for indie games at this point.
Look at games like Shovel Knight, right? Shovel Knight comes out real early on the Switch. People had already bought it once, twice, and they still went and bought it again. Why? Because you could take it with you on the go, and the game is amazing. Yeah. So why not? Why not buy it again? And that's what they did. So now, indie, I'm going to put this company in this because they're certainly not AAA, but they are a known publisher. They're not really a developer. Well, I guess they sort of are, but the UIG, the shovelware company, we got a chance to see. Go ahead.
I wonder how much they enjoy being called the shovelware company.
Well, probably not, but the proof's in the pudding.
You're going to call a spade.
Yeah, pretty much. We've seen 3 of their titles of the UIG shovelware on the shelf recently via Germany, and then a little bit later on in other parts of Europe. We've got firefighters, the simulation, airport firefighters, and professional construction. So UIG is notorious for this low-quality simulator shovelware. But I would say I'm not surprised to see them come out physically in Germany because they're like that country is huge into simulators. So there's probably a bunch of people that are going to buy every simulator that UIG puts out and actually play it.
How are they, by the way?
I have kicked up each of the 3 for just a little bit, and they're all terrible. They're slow. They're boring. I mean, some of it is simply the fact that you've turned certain things into a simulation that I don't care to simulate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's that. At the crux of it, that's what that is, right? A simulator can be fun that you didn't even realize was going to be fun. You remember like Sim Ant?
I've heard people talk about how great Sim Ant is, but no, I never played it.
It's not bad, and like you wouldn't necessarily think that it would be something engaging, but back in the day, I'd put some hours into that. But like professional construction, if I'm going to build something, I don't necessarily know that I want it to follow some sort of, strict normal standard. That's games for me are fantasy and escape, and I don't necessarily want that type of realism in that world. If
you're going to do a sim game right, it has to be something that you don't notice, in my opinion. Games like, they have the walking sim genre of games, stuff like Firewatch, and they have garden sim games like Stardew Valley. Like those are games that at their core simulate something, but there's a layer over top of it that makes you not focus on that.
I just don't see UIG and their slew of simulations being enjoyed by the masses here. I'm going to say that that's more than likely why they did not land on the shelf here in the US, in North America. There was a bunch of these titles that showed up in UIG Games and VGP systems up in Canada. And then they got taken out. They got backed out.
Thankfully.
And they're not. Yeah, thankfully. Yeah. I don't want to see them come out here. I don't want to repurchase the ones that I have. I don't think the odds are very high, but I don't know.
You're shivering, shaking in your boots.
I am.
I don't want to buy UIG Games again.
Yeah, I don't. I really don't. Can you think of another publisher out there putting out stuff that it's literally this consistently poor? I mean, there's a couple that are bad, but I don't know about that bad.
Yeah, there's a few that are bad, not that bad. What comes to mind for me, there's two other studios come to mind for me. It would be Big Ben.
Yeah.
And Maximum Games. Well, which Hunting Simulator wasn't too bad from what I've been told.
Well, to be fair for Maximum Games, the only game they've truly published on the Switch was Troll and I. The rest of them were distribution.
Yeah.
And they actually distributed a bunch of the Big Ben games.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that they are shovelware. Troll and I don't consider Troll and I shovelware. I consider it a lackluster game. But I don't consider it shovelware. But those are the only two.
It's a lackluster game that paired with a poor implementation.
Yeah. So,
I mean, it was executed badly on this device.
So those are the two studios that or publishers that I associate to consistently having their name attached to games that I would consider shovelware.
Yeah. I don't know if 2K Games keeps putting out their garbage the way that it's been. I might start throwing them at that.
No, 2K's name being attached to Borderlands gives them a pass for me, but I will give them a stern look from time to time. They keep putting out crap.
It's one of these things where, they should have known better.
Yeah.
And I just don't know why that happened, but yeah. So talking about repurchasing games, there's been some announcements of some new editions of old games.
Yeah.
If you follow my meaning.
Yeah. So you're referring to like Mario Rabbids Gold Edition and Rocket League Ultimate Edition.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Mario and Rabbids Gold Edition, though, that was the same cartridge with a code on a piece of paper for extra content, right? So all that DLC that you could buy afterwards, here's a piece of paper, throw it in the box with the existing cartridge, we'll put a new cover on it, and we'll sell that. And now if you never bought it before, you can buy this and you can add the code, and congratulations, you have the entire game.
Yeah, I'm not so much worried about those because I probably won't repurchase that just because it's the exact same game. But Ultimate Edition Rocket League is one that I will have to repurchase because it's a whole bunch of additional content put onto the cartridge, and I'm not happy about it. Thankfully, Rocket League is a good game. So, and Panic Button did a phenomenal job with its porting. So, I'm willing to support Panic Button and Psyonix, but
yeah, Psyonix has announced on their website that this absolutely is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not happy about it. I'm begrudgingly giving them my money, but I'm not worried about Rabbids because it's the same thing. But Rocket League is something different. The cart code will be different. It's got more content.
As a collector who is happy to increase the size of the collection, I'm happy that Rocket League is going to have a second version with lots of additional stuff actually on the cart. I looked at the Mario and Rabbids one as an opportunity that they wasted. Now at the same time, okay, I saved myself, from buying a game, but I probably would have enjoyed that one with the DLC on the cartridge too.
Yeah, if it had DLC on the cartridge, maybe I'd begrudgingly do that, give Ubisoft my money. But to me, Mario Rabbids Gold Edition is basically a variant cover. That's all it is to me. It's like if you bought a different edition of NBA 2K, or you know, if I didn't have the first edition of Binding of Isaac, I might buy the current edition of Binding of Isaac, that sort of thing. But I'm not going to own them both.
Now there are collectors we know that are buying each edition of those. Code or no code.
I mean, that's on them. Like I said, I'm not going to knock other people's choices when it comes to their kind of collecting, but it's not for me, and that this is why. But plenty of people tell me that they're variant collectors. They're buying multiple copies of the same game just because they have different publishers on the front cover, or only at GameStop on the front cover, and the other versions don't have it, and that's fine. It's not for me. I'm not going to knock them for doing it. You know, don't starve as a result of having to buy the game multiple times, but you know, enjoy. If that's how you want to collect it by all means.
Feed your kids and family before you feed
your exactly.
So, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of I guess I kind of think it's going to be cool to have both the original one and this ultimate one sitting next to each other on the shelf.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be nice.
So yeah, you had noticed something about another game coming out. I don't know. I almost hesitate to call it a game. It's a game, but it's not a game. It's more of it's a project.
Yeah. Well, it ties into some games. It does have some compatibility stuff that we go in. And
what do you think? What do you think? What should Labo?
Labo's not dead. Labo, it's just more cardboard. It's just more cardboard.
More cardboard.
Yeah, so Labo 3, the vehicle kit, has been announced. I like it. I like the way they're going with it. It's going to add an airplane and a submarine and a car. So I think that's.
Are you gonna build it? Are you gonna build any of it, or is it just gonna sit in the box?
You know, I might build the car, just because it has Mario Kart 8 Deluxe compatibility with the motorbike handle. So I'm kind of thinking that there might be some compatibility added in for Mario Kart. That'd be kind of neat. Just have a steering wheel made out of cardboard. So I mean, obviously you can already buy the plastic wheels like they had for the Wii and the Wii U and stuff. But I mean, come on.
I know. Gosh, I don't know.
This has the whole steering column.
Another thing.
It's a whole steering column.
No, but it could be another situation, kind of like the piano, where I built the piano and then I backfilled it with the replacement parts from their website. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of thinking something like that.
Yeah. It's coming out in September 14th for $69.99. And if it holds true, though, if you still have GCU did discount Labo the first time. So
yeah, they did.
They did. Might be able
I got a good discount on both of those. So the biggest complaint people had about the robot kit, they did not have about the variety kit, because the robot kit was literally an all for one type of thing. You're all in on the entire kit, right? If you want to get a building experience, you get one building experience for the whole thing, and it's a big one, but then you're done and you have nothing more to build.
Yeah, many hours.
The variety kit had the variety kit had a few different projects, and the vehicle kit is very much like that, right? So I think this might do as well as the variety kit did in a sense.
Yeah.
But I don't think it will sell as well. I don't think it's going to land as hard.
There is one piece of the kit works for all three vehicles, and that is there's an acceleration pedal. So you'll build that, and that'll carry over through all three vehicles. So there is one big project your first time, and then 2 additional add-ons, basically, is what this one's going to offer.
So I had this idea for Labo that I would love to see them do. And most of the stuff they're doing is it's got some sort of interaction with the console. Obviously, they've coded software. You get a cartridge. There's stuff that it can go with, and then they've taken the extra step to add compatibility, like the motorbike compatibility you could use with some games now, and the vehicle one will have that. I would like to see you remember Marble Labyrinths, where you would put the marble on and you would turn the knobs.
Yeah.
I think you could make that out of cardboard.
Yeah, like
with the Switch.
The wooden box with the random holes the marble could fall into. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could make, like, the amount of cardboard it would take and the engineering that would go into this, you could take and do that. And then you could have a stack of cardboard ones that change the play field, where different holes and different pop-up walls and whatnot, you would fold up and insert. There's something there. And I would love to see Nintendo do something like that.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah, like I said when it first came out, I don't think Labo's done, and they're putting out more, and it sold well in Japan, so they're going to keep supporting it for a while. I know that a lot of people I talked to in the States, it was very lackluster. I know some retailers I talked to didn't really sell a whole lot, but they're still going, and I'm going to buy it.
It's still okay. To say it was lackluster is kind of a weird way to put it, though, because it's still sold. It was like number 1 and 3 the week that it came out.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good, because most games, when they come out, sell their most within the first week. So
yeah.
I don't know, man. That's a tough.
I'm wondering if they're gonna release any more of the tape kits, since they're obviously not done supporting the Labo. They may as well.
The customization kit that we got was minor compared to what they got in Japan.
Yeah, they got like 5 in Japan, and we got the 1.
I know. Kind of wild. Yeah, that I'm looking forward to it. If nothing more, I just want to see them keep going on that and see what other ideas they put out, because I think there's a lot of potential. I just don't think they've tapped it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff I'd be interested to see what kind of Toy-Con Garage they do, or Labo Garage they do with this too, because if they're going to offer it like they did with the Variety Kit, because the Variety Kit had a lot of stuff that got discovered after the fact. I mean, we talked about the guy that was playing the Octolings song from Splatoon on the Labo. I've seen people playing the Legend of Zelda. The same guy did Legend of Zelda on the Labo piano, but I also saw the composer who did Game of Thrones playing the Game of Thrones theme on the Labo. So there's been a lot of pickup to that. People just, I don't know. I guess it kind of flew under the radar after the big splash it made.
Possible? It's just cardboard.
Exactly. It's just cardboard. It's kind of like there's no games on the Switch. So
there's no games on the Switch. That's what I was going to say. There's no games. So no, Nintendo has something here, whether people want to recognize that or not. There is something there. I keep trying to think about what directions they could go and things that you could potentially create with it. And there's a lot. There's more than meets the eye on this.
Ooh, is that a sly
Transformers?
That's a sly Transformers thing, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I think there's ways to do other stuff with this.
I don't think you're going to top that Transformers reference, but we'll move on.
I know. Probably not. So. There was another announcement that is super exciting. I'm kind of this
a noob.
Diablo 3. I'm just going to drop it out there. Diablo 3. Okay. Yeah. Diablo 3 was announced, but this is something that was hinted at. There was talks about this that were very, very quickly swept under the rug after a little hint from months ago.
Yeah.
And then it went away.
And I even said in the Discord when they first swept it under the rug that they did the same thing with a previous game, and that them saying there's nothing to announce now was not an admission that it wasn't going to happen. So
no, just that it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, that they didn't have anything to announce. So I am extremely excited about Diablo 3 coming to the Switch, and for multiple reasons. I played a lot of it on PC, and that's why I was calling you a noob when you were talking about it, because you admitted to me that you haven't really played any of it, really. But I think you'll enjoy it. It's like I said before when we were talking about Titan Quest, like back on the first or second podcast, give me Diablo 3. That's all I need. Just give me Diablo 3, and they're giving it to me. The big draw is the get up and go.
So once you get that, you're just gonna. That's all you're gonna play. And
my collection's full. That's my grill.
You're done. Yeah.
Collection complete. I'm selling the rest of it. I'm just going to keep Diablo. No, so,
it's all
the huge draw. So it's going to have online play. It's going to be up to date, including Rifts, the Necromancer, and Reaper of Souls. So all of that is great. 100% great. It's going to have online play. I don't know how they're going to handle the seasons, if there's going to be seasons in it or not, but they did say it's going to be...
How are they going to... How do you think this is actually going to play on the Switch versus a PC?
I think it's going to play fine. The game is, several years old at this point. I think it came out in like 2012, 6 years old, maybe. I don't know, somewhere around there. So
are you going to play touchscreen or like, because PC you do tend to use a lot of mouse for games like that.
So here's the thing: it's already out on other consoles. In fact, they added in some extra stuff into the consoles that's not in the PC version. So I have it on 360. I have the expansion on 360 as well. I did not buy the Ultimate Edition, which came out on Xbox One and PS4, which is what we're getting on the Switch, which has everything in one big cartridge. The mechanic that they use, obviously each button is going to be assigned to a different ability, and every person has 4 abilities, plus you have your button for your potion and stuff like that. You do have that, and then you also have 1 or 2 buttons for other things, obviously, but the movement is not point and click like it is on the PC. You're going to move using the stick. And one of the things they added in on the console version previously is a dive ability, which isn't in the PC version. So you can actually dive one direction or the other, which is kind of a neat little addition. They've also announced, if you bought it on other consoles, you got the Infernal Crown. It was something that increased your experience gain up to a certain point, and you're going to get something like that with this. You're getting Ganondorf's armor, which is kind of neat. I don't know what abilities or add-ons or equip status is going to come with it, but you do get that. So that's nice. There is a transmog kind of thing going on with it where you can get gear of one type and you can make it look like another, like what they do in the World of Warcraft. So that's there, and it'll probably be in the game too. So you can have the best armor in the game and make it look like Ganondorf's armor if you want to. That's not a big deal. One of the major draws for this, though, is that it is couch co-opable. So you can play this multiple players on the same Switch, on the same screen, or you can play online with friends, and it's not been actually said that I've seen anywhere, and I didn't dig too deep, but they did show in the announcement video 4 people playing it in a car, which tells me that they're doing local LAN support.
And that the driver is very unsafe.
And the driver is extremely unsafe, because if he's not playing, he's probably turning around a lot to watch. But that is a huge thing, because Diablo 3 on the PC doesn't support LAN at all. It's online only. Even single player, you're still online. But the console version, obviously, they can't do a online always version, and it looks like they're adding in LAN support so that you can have multiple switches in the same LAN wirelessly playing together. It didn't look like they were even connected to a router. It looked like they were just all playing. I don't know if maybe they're all playing 4 individual games. That may have been, but it looks like local play is something that they're adding in. So I'd be interested to see how they're going to do that.
How many hours would you say of just single player content would be in this version with all of the expansion content that's on there?
All of it is single player content as far as I'm concerned.
We're talking about the idea of having multiplayer stuff. If you were to just pick it up and just play yourself all the way through all of the content, how many hours of play am I going to get out of this?
If you play through all the content, because it's open-ended, but if you play through just the story, you're looking at 8 to 10 hours to get to max level playing just through the story, because you have to restart, and once you beat it, depending on what difficulty you're playing on, stuff like that, you're looking at several hours. For normal people who've not really played the game a whole lot, you're looking at maybe 10 to 20 hours of just of just grind to get to the end game. And then once you get there, it's limitless. So you have different variations of the same gear. So you've got ancients and primordial ancients, and it affects the stats on the gear. So getting best in slot is not as simple as just finding the set you need and the best weapon. There's still upgrades to be had. Plus there's enchants you can do. You can reroll certain skill or certain attributes on there. There's different builds. Each character has a different builds that are good. So some are more superior to others, but it's all going to be based on your playstyle. So there's plenty of extra stuff in there to do. I've poured so many hours into the PC version. I've not played a whole lot on the console. I have played some. I did not play Reaper of Souls, but I did play the original Diablo 3 when it came out on console.
If you came from a position like I did, where you've played D1 and 2, how much departure is it to 3? Is it feeling like you just jump right back in, or is this different?
It's different. It's streamlined a lot. The story is going to be very familiar in terms of just like the backbone of the story, but it's different, completely different. There's a lot of people prefer Diablo 2 to Diablo 3, but to me they're not the same game to compare to one another, really. So I still enjoy Diablo 3 from time to time. Diablo 2 I will go down as one of the games that I've probably played the most time into, because I could remember having LAN parties with friends and we would play Diablo 2. So I think there's something in there for people to enjoy. If you enjoyed Diablo 1 and 2, I think you will enjoy 3, maybe not as much, but I think it'll warm the cockles of your heart.
I'm looking forward to playing it. I'm curious about the experience on the console, like I said, versus playing on a PC, because everything for that type of game that I'm used to has been on the PC and not on the console. This is the first time I think we're going to get a chance to do something like this. See, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about the ability for certain types of games to be put on the go. And I think I need to clarify, when I mean on the go, I don't mean, hey, I'm taking my Switch and I'm picking it up and I'm getting in my car and I'm driving off, or I'm getting on the bus or whatever the hell. Sometimes on the go literally just means to get up from my desk, to go sit on a couch, or to go lay in bed and play, which
or in your case, sit on the toilet and play. You do that a lot.
Wasn't gonna tell everybody that's none of their damn business, and I'll thank them to stay out of my personal affairs. And it wouldn't be that bad if it wasn't for those damn jalapenos.
Yeah.
But really, just the idea of being able to pick it up and move to another room or another setting, and that's on the go. You know, that's I'm no longer tethered to the screen that I started on for that game. In fact, it's so easy to just pick up and go that the game within a couple of seconds is playing. Like, you could be in the middle of whatever you're doing. You don't even have to pause. You can just lift your Switch out of the dock, and in 2 seconds, you're now playing in handheld mode, right in front of you. That's an experience we haven't had before, right? With other consoles the same way. And that is amazing to take those games and put them on this system, games of that caliber. It allows for me and many others to play games in that maybe they wouldn't have had all the time to play previously, or maybe they wouldn't have enjoyed quite as much, but now they can, be where they're most comfortable playing something like that. Sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes when you sit at the computer for all day, sometimes you don't want to sit there and you want to pick it up and go. I do spend a ton of time in front of my screens, but at the same time, like, there's times where I just want to lay in bed and play games, and I can play the same game that I was playing 5 minutes earlier sitting in front of my computer. So yep. I really think that's neat. I think that's something else. Speaking of games, what have you been playing? I know the answer to this question. I don't even know why I'm asking it this way, but what have you been playing recently?
I will say that I have Captain Toad in my Switch. I will say that. I've been playing Captain Toad on the Switch. But I have been neglecting Captain Toad ever since Battle for Azeroth came out, because I've been playing nothing but World of Warcraft for the past week.
What year is this?
I know, right? Yeah, I've been playing a lot of World of Warcraft, and nobody can give me crap about it because I'm not the only one playing World of Warcraft.
No, I'm playing it too, but for very different reasons.
And not with me.
No, definitely not. That's because you play Alliance.
No, you are a damn liar. No, I will always be for the Horde.
Victory for Sylvanas.
Sylvanas is kind of rubbing me the wrong way right now. She was my war chief last expansion, but right now I'm kind of a sour fang, guy. But she's still my queen. I'm still doing stuff, but.
So let me tell you about my experience, because yours is more of what's happening now. Mine is the before, right? So I played WoW many years ago, many years ago.
Me too.
Yeah, but I stopped many years ago. Go ahead and say me too again.
Yeah, me too. Off and on, me too.
So. I, at the time, tried to convince my wife to play WoW, and she wasn't interested at the time. At the time, it didn't appeal to her. She didn't see the error of her ways. This was rectified about a year ago. I finally convinced her to just try it. You can start for free.
Yeah, level 1 through 20 for free. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the gateway drug, right? Free. Here, just try it. So she had her, crappy laptop that we loaded it on there, got her started. I logged in and created a brand new level 1 character to play alongside. Showed her the ropes, said, here's how you do it. Here, you click here, you go here, you read these things, you do what the man says. You kill 10 boars, you come back and you claim your 3 copper. Right?
Yep.
So you go through all that. Well, I got her hooked, and she's been playing nonstop for a year. She loves to take her time, go through the quests. She's really doing a real good job building a character and just enjoying it. But after I took my character along with her to about level 40, in fact, at 40, I stopped again because I was really just at the time trying to get her going, get her familiar with the game and the mechanics and just how to learn to play. And then I set it aside and, kept going on Switch stuff, and that was that. But a few weeks ago, I started getting the itch again. You know the itch I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. It's sort of the same way for me, except that my itch is my wife saying, "Hey, new expansion. Hey, new expansion. Hey, new expansion."
Yeah, and so that itch, I decided I'm gonna go ahead and scratch it. So I rolled a brand new Undead Priest, and I am playing. That's what I'm doing with my free time, outside of editing our videos and podcasts. I've been rolling my character up and trying to get there. And so far I am about halfway level wise to where my wife is. So I'm making my way up through the levels to get there. And I'm going to catch her at some point.
Well, when she level caps, she has nowhere else to go.
That's right. That's right. And then she has no choice but to be caught up to.
Yeah.
But I stopped playing completely after Wrath for quite a while. And then I picked up Cataclysm after it came out. I take that back. No, I played through Cataclysm. I played through Cataclysm and then quit for a while. Mm-hmm. And then I came back and I played, what was after that? Was that Pandaria?
Yeah, Mists of Pandaria.
After that?
Yep.
Yeah. And I didn't even finish that. I went through, I don't even think I level capped that and was kind of done. And I think it was because I spent so much time in it in a concentrated fashion prior to that point. And then I put it away. I did not play any of the expansions after Pandaria.
So you didn't play Warlords of Draenor or Legion?
That is correct.
Okay.
And so now the goal is to continue this character all the way through, play all of the content, including finishing Pandaria, and play the 3 other expansions that I have yet to play. So that's the goal. I'm going to take this priest to cap and begin heroics, etc., just to see how far I can go before I get bored again. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. So my story was I played Vanilla, Burning Crusade, and up until Ulduar came out in Wrath of the Lich King. And at that point, I was raiding very heavily. And it was, people started treating it like a job. And when you mess up once and they start screaming at you like you're a child, that's when I decided that it was enough for me. And I quit halfway through Ulduar. Not literally halfway through, but like we had completed half of it, half of Ulduar, and at that point I quit. And I came back when Firelands came out in Cataclysm, and I played that for a little while, and then I picked it back up when Mists of Pandaria launched. And I played through Mists of Pandaria. I played through the beginning of Warlords of Draenor, and I stopped. And then I came back again in Legion, and I played Legion about halfway through and then stopped. And now I've picked back up with Battle for Azeroth, but I've consistently played the same characters. I'm still using the same account I had back in Vanilla. My original character from Vanilla and Burning Crusade, which I then switched to another character in Burning Crusade and played it through Mists of Pandaria, and then rolled another character and played it through Mists of Pandaria, and then I rolled another character on a different server and played through now. That's the character I'm on now. So I've consistently played the same account. But I took a couple days of PTO off work. My wife did the same, and we both played. I play mainly because she wants to play, and so she wants to play together, and that's what we're doing. I've leveled my character to max, and I'm running heroics and mythics now, but her character's not there because she's not didn't play as much as I did to get there. So I'm actually on a second character that I had at 110 at the end of Legion, and I'm actually leveling with her on that character now, and she's at 116 or so, and that character's at 111, so it's not a big deal. But when she's not playing, I'm on my main character, and she's gonna want to try to raid like we did before. So I imagine that I'm just getting started with how deep this rabbit hole is gonna go for me. But once she burns out, usually we both taper off, and then a few months later she gets the itch, which means that I get the itch, and then we just take off again. Yeah,
it's weird how that works with that too, because the only games I can say that, and it's, to be honest, the only game, there's only one game that I've ever played that scratched the WoW itch properly, and that was Rift.
I played that for a little bit.
Yeah, and that, I think, is the, at least in my eyes, when I switched off of WoW at the end of, or halfway through Pandaria, I had already started Rift a while before that, and then had come back to WoW. But after I put that away, there were a couple of times where I had gotten itches to play again, and I had picked back up on Rift instead. And now Rift has gone through its own couple of metamorphoses as well.
Yeah, I played Rift till it went free to play. That's when I stopped.
Yeah, but I don't know if you know this, but they, and I don't even know if it's out yet or if they're coming out with it, they're doing something or have done something similar to what WoW's doing with Vanilla, and they've got a way to play the original Rift the same way that it was prior to free to play.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that, but classic servers in WoW is something I'm looking forward to.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of people are. I mean, the vanilla experience compared to now is so different.
Yeah,
it's you can't say it's an entirely different game, but there are a lot of things.
Yeah, it's been streamlined for very casual players. I mean, there are people who can play it hardcore, but it's been streamlined to keep the casual players involved as well. Whereas the original vanilla was very much a grind fest, and only the people who were really super dedicated got to the end and started doing in-game stuff. So the people who quit after all that, the people who quit in Wrath, basically, they're the ones that are probably the ones that said they would never come back will probably start coming back when Classic comes out.
Yeah, they'll come back for that. Yeah. What's interesting is I could theoretically see them maybe at some point having another version of this that takes you through Wrath, because Wrath was, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinions, the best expansion, or the combination of Burning and Wrath made it the best.
Yeah, Burning Crusade was my favorite. Wrath was probably my second favorite.
I know it was your favorite. I don't know too many people that say stuff beyond Wrath. I mean, most people go, well, Cataclysm was good. It was okay. But I don't know anybody that says anything beyond that they say, oh, everything else. Oh, nobody goes, Mists was fantastic.
A lot of people say that Legion was, but Mists and Wrath, and for a lot of people, Cataclysm weren't well received.
I don't know. It's interesting. It would be kind of neat if they would allow for you to play the game the way it was at each stage.
Well, I imagine they'll have to do that eventually, because you can only cram so much content into a classic server before you have to go to the next expansion. Like, people are going to burn out if all you give them is Molten Core through AQ40, or Nax Ramus, I guess, came out at the end of Vanilla also. But if you only give them that, they're going to burn out eventually. There's not going to be. Yeah. They'll see everything there is to see, and they just will stop playing unless you progress to the next section, which would be interesting to reboot the entire game that way. But I think what would be super interesting is if they kept the game that way and basically made it its own separate game and just kept the same skill tree mechanic and stuff even past where it ended in the current game. I think that would be kind of neat to see. But at that point, you're going to have multiple teams working on 2 different games.
Yeah. There's no doubt that this will be an interesting experiment, the way that they're going to go about this. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've been playing. And I think I'm going to pull my Switch out of its dock. I'm going to tell you what was last brought up. Okay, the last thing I actually played, because some of these were just stick the cartridge in, make sure they work. And since my internet was down for nearly a week, I didn't even claim the points on these. I think Toad was actually the last Switch game. Yeah, Toad was the last game I actually played as well. Let's see. Before that, some Coda Princess. Yeah, I played some Coda Princess. I played Coda Princess online. A little bit laggy if you play it online. Not anything that ruins the game, but it is a bit laggy for me. Just noticeable. Yeah, it's very noticeable, but it didn't. The buffering, like, there wasn't stuff going on that I wasn't seeing. It would just buffer and then come back, and we'd be in the exact same place. So it's not like the screen would freeze, and then when it stopped being frozen, I'd be dead or anything like that. So right. I will say that of the games that came in recently, there's 2 from Merge Games that I think I'm going to be putting back into the Switch to play some more of real soon. Runbow. Both Runbow and Slain Back from Hell. See, I'm thinking Runbow, Runbow and the Coma. Coma's not really my cup of tea. I know you like the horror stuff, but that felt a lot like a visual novel, and I'm not really into visual novels. Sorry, Adorabear. I know that's Adorabear's thing, but that's not. I'm just not a huge fan of that type of game. Yeah, I'm not massive on horror or anything like that. Yeah, I think when I finish Toad, which I've got 6 levels left in episode 2, and I've collected everything that there is to collect up to this point. So once I finish Toad, I might pop in the Coma. But I'd like to play Runbow online. Maybe I'll get some people in the Discord who have it to play. Yeah, it looks really fun, and you can play up to 9 people online. I'd say another game that's kind of like Runbow that I wouldn't mind see come to the Switch is Speedrunners. I think Speedrunners would be really fun. I don't know if that's something that they would put on the Switch, honestly.
I think it'd be really neat.
Well, there's a lot of things that would be neat. I just don't know if it'll make it or not.
Oh, yeah, I doubt it, but I'm saying I'd like to see it. Come on now.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I just don't know if it'll actually make it here. So we got a couple of questions here from the Discord, and I reordered them from the order I got them in. So we're going to do ban from Dota's question. His is actually like a two-parter. I'll ask you first here on this one. Do you think that the market is getting oversaturated with games, specifically limited releases?
Oversaturated with games, yes. So we're getting a lot of oversaturation on the eShop because we're getting mobile ports of stuff. And then physically, it's starting to get a little overwhelming for some people with the amount of titles that we have coming out consistently, and like a lot of them aren't that good of titles, games that I don't feel necessitated a physical release are getting physically released, and that's fine. I'm not saying in a perfect world everything get physical release so that we have it for historical purposes, but there's just some games that I feel like we could prioritize over others that are getting physical. And then as far as limited release games go, I don't know so much that we're being oversaturated, but I can tell you that we're paying a hell of a lot of money for them. I feel like that's something that could be I know that they're doing the best they can with what they got, but I feel like there's just something somewhere that can be done, and if it can be done, I'm sure they'll figure it out. I'm not trying to put down super rare or limited run or special reserve, anybody like that, signature edition. I'm not putting them down. Because if there is a way to do it, they're going to do it because they want to make their customers happy, and I get that. But I feel like there's something that's being missed, and we're paying a lot of money, a lot more than we should be. So that's something that I feel is the case. That's my opinion.
I'd agree. I think we're seeing a lot of games that if I look at what I have on the shelf, hint, hint, there are games that if I was not collecting for the collection, that I would not have hesitated to just blink and move past. I mean, I would not have given a second look to a good number of some of the titles that we have here. Mm-hmm. Some of them, I think they're great. I love the fact that we've gotten, I'll even throw out the idea that I love the fact that we got Skyrim on Switch. I'm not going to play it on my Switch much because I have a PC and you can mod the crap out of things on the PC and Skyrim becomes a much better experience that way. But the idea that we have it is great, and I probably would have picked it up. Brawlout, I like. Darkest Dungeon, I think is cool. But then I start looking around. I'm like, would I really have bought this copy of Harvest Moon? Probably not.
Yeah, see, and I like that you used Harvest Moon as opposed to going for the obvious lackluster games like Monster Jam. Because those games,
I think those are easy.
Yeah, those are easy targets. Right? Those are easy targets, but some of those are necessary because you have to have a couple of games that appeal to a specific demographic that's just not us. So those games are obvious. But yeah, Harvest Moon is a game that I wanted so bad to be good, and it is not. So
no, it's. Now, the only positive of that is we did get the chocolate cow plushie out of that.
Well, you got the chocolate cow plushie. My wife got one.
It's up on my display.
It's on my wife's.
The game itself, it's a shame.
Yeah,
it's a real shame.
Yeah, if you're not a collector and you want to play Harvest Moon type games, skip Harvest Moon and get Stardew.
Yeah. There's no doubt.
And then there's a lot of rumblings right now that Stardew's getting a physical release soon. Well, not soon, but it's going to be announced.
I think people would see that coming, and I wouldn't disagree with doing that. I think it's a game that deserves it.
Yeah, most definitely.
I mean, the argument that all games deserve it one way or the other is you could make that argument, and I wouldn't necessarily mind getting, some of these games we don't have physically, but the eShop allows for a good amount of garbage to get filtered out. I mean, a lot of people talk about how there's so much junk on there, and yes, the interface on the eShop needs to be redone so that you can find the quality stuff, so that they need to make it better for people to be able to get to the things that should be bought and weed out the stuff that shouldn't. Now, that would allow publishers like the limited publishers that we're talking about here, the ability to find the things that should be put out on physical media. Are we oversaturated with that right now in the limited space? I don't know that I would say we're oversaturated. I would say it's probably a lot for some people to keep up with, but if it's a lot for you to keep up with, you shouldn't be buying everything anyways. You shouldn't even be buying every limited release if it's tough for you to do that. Don't put yourself in a bad position financially. If you can't afford to do it, don't do it. The games will be around, even if you had to pay more later. If you could save up for 2 months to buy the one game that you like that's limited and skip another month to get, to put that off to some other time, or just never buy the one that you aren't as happy with, then do that. Don't push yourself. This collecting, the beautiful thing about our community, we have hundreds of people on the Discord, thousands of people on the subreddit, and there are plenty of other collectors outside of our community. The beautiful thing is you get to choose the rules by which you collect, and nobody can tell you that that's wrong because they are your rules. So you make your rules for that. You collect the way you want to, and be proud of and be happy with your collection.
No, they'll try though. They'll try to tell you.
They will try. The second question is from MP3 Burn 420, also from the Discord. Is a bird in the hand really worth two in the bush?
Yeah. Yeah, so that expression is used in the idea that if you have something that is guaranteed, is it better than a gamble that's bigger but not guaranteed? And so in most cases, yes. If you, you can look at it in terms of like jobs. Like, is it better to keep the job you have rather than apply for a better job? No. Not necessarily, but if applying for that new job were to mean that you lost your current one, see that's the risk. So, ends justify the means. The risk versus reward, that kind of thing plays in. But for the most part, I think a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush for when applied to most things. Not all.
Yeah. I don't even think that I could say it any better than that. That basically, you've nailed it. The answer is yes. It's a simple question. I know the question was posed in a somewhat joking manner, but the simple answer is yes.
Yeah. We're getting all philosophical up in this piece.
That's right. I don't think I've got anything else to talk about.
Well, me neither. We spent a good chunk of time talking about World of Warcraft.
Which should be on the Switch. I'm just going to say that. I'm just going to put it out there. I want WoW on the Switch.
I can't do that though. Like, I could play Prot Paladin on the Switch, but I couldn't play Shadow Priest on the Switch. There's no way.
Why? Why not?
I have so many.
Put the buttons on the touchscreen at the bottom.
Then I'm just laying the Switch down and playing it like a keyboard.
No, you can sit in your bed and hold it and tap on the screen.
And how are you going to turn while you're tapping? PvP would be an absolute nightmare.
With the other stick? I don't know.
With touch screen, PvP would be an absolute nightmare.
You figure it out. You figure it out and get back to
Blizzard would have to. It doesn't pay me enough to figure that stuff out.
You figure it out and get back to us. Other than that, this has been a fantastic episode of On the Shelf.
Yes. That much I will agree with you.
Listening.
I'm not going to agree with you on the I'm not going to agree with you on the World of Warcraft thing on the Switch, but I will agree with it's been a good episode of On the Shelf.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.